Chapter 784. In addition to these people, there were also two people in the crowd who were even more unscrupulous than Lin Yuxuan. They were the twin brothers. The two of them carried a giant axe and a machete as they charged forward. How could the charging bronze-armored warriors resist the two wolf-like people? They were knocked over and lost their footing, swaying left and right. However, they were different from Lin Yuxuan. These two mostly relied on brute force and did not use much Jinyuan. Although they looked impressive, their consumption was pitiful. As for the middle-aged woman, she found it difficult to deal with so many bronze-armored warriors. It could be seen that she walked the path of cunning and sinister. 1 against 2. It was much easier for her to deal with them than ordinary people, but once the numbers reached a certain level, she would find it difficult to deal with them. Fortunately, her movement techniques were quite good, and she could always avoid the bronze-armored warriors' attacks at critical moments and follow closely behind the group. Yichun and Murong Qingsheng were also at the back of the group. In front of them were the twin brothers, and behind them was the middle-aged woman. Murong Qingsheng relied on speed to make a living. Speed was her talent, so she was naturally very calm. Clang, 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 clang. Yichun strolled leisurely. The thunder disaster sword in his hand seemed slow, but was actually fast. Every time it was swung, it was just right when the warriors were about to attack. So, it looked like they were coming to him on their own. It was orderly and pleasing to the eye. Before, the middle-aged woman had looked down on Yichun a bit, thinking that he had no other use besides his soul power. But now, she did not think that way anymore. Among the 11 people, Yichun was the most relaxed. It was not that he was the strongest, but his perception and timing were the best. This brat does have some skills. He is not that easy to deal with. If there are any disputes in the future, I will wait and see. Living at their level, it was very important to judge the situation. Arguing with someone they had no confidence in dealing with was not a rational and stupid thing to do. The bronze-armored warriors in the corridor were like a tide, while the group was like an iron boat on the tide, cutting through the waves and pressing forward. After about the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, everyone safely passed through the corridor. Turning around, they saw that all the bronze-armored warriors were frozen in place. Then, with a flash of light, they merged into the pillars on both sides of the corridor, becoming one with the sculptures. Is everyone all right? Jin Wanchuang let out a breath and asked after scanning the surroundings. Not bad. Let's continue forward. The bronze-armored warriors were nothing more than an appetizer for them. Any one of them would be an invincible figure under life and death realm. How could they be defeated by a group of mindless scrap metal? That's good. Jin Wanchuang continued to lead the way. He also believed that these things wouldn't be too troublesome. When he invited people, he had thought it through. Of course, there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the tea house, so he had only invited a portion of them. After passing through the corridor, everyone came to a central hall. This hall was equivalent to an aisle rest area. There were some restrooms on both sides, but there was nothing else. Everyone left the hall and directly walked out of the hall through the passage in front. As soon as they exited the hall, everyone suddenly stopped. What entered his eyes was a large forest that was divided into two. The small path in the middle was the only path that led to the other side. In the forest, there were countless red lights that flickered as if there were countless fireflies dancing in it. It was incomparably gorgeous. Without saying anything, Jin Wanchuang took a deep breath and took a step forward. The secluded path was covered in layers of mist and immeasurably deep. The trees on both sides of the path were lush and quiet, carrying a trace of deathly stillness. So beautiful! A firefly flew down from a nearby tree and was about to perch on the shoulder of the younger twin brother. It shone as brightly as a bean. The younger twin was attracted by the firefly and reached out to grab it. Bang! An intense flame exploded, and a powerful chi wave blew the surrounding 10 people off balance, making it hard for them to open their eyes. Meanwhile, the younger twin's entire right hand was scorched black, emitting green smoke. Little brother. The older twin was startled. Motherfucker, this firefly can even explode. The younger twin turned his head and revealed a smile toward the older brother. His scorched right arm lightly shook, and the ashes of his clothes fell down, revealing the skin underneath. What a powerful body! Yi Chen's eyes squinted. The might of a firefly's explosion could only be described as frightening, not any weaker than a full-powered attack of a normal half-step king. Yet, the younger twin was still fine even after holding it. It was easy to imagine the extent of his body's defense. If it were someone else, their arm would definitely be destroyed. This is a self-exploding firebug. The elder opened his eyes wide and said word by word, "Self-exploding firebug?" The others looked at him with a confused expression. A trace of fear appeared on the elder's face. These bugs have existed since ancient times, but they are extinct now. The explosion of one self-exploding firebug will attract all the others. This is the fire forest, a place where powerful warriors burn. If you want to live, leave this place as soon as possible. Leave? Where to run? Everyone looked ahead and then back. Both sides were covered in layers of mist, making it hard to advance or retreat. If they went forward, they wouldn't know where the end was, and if they retreated, the distance was not short either. Moreover, they had come here for treasures, so there was no reason to retreat. However, compared to their lives, retreating did not seem shameful. Forward! Jin Wanchuang's face was firm as he led the way. Follow him. At this moment, there was only unity. However, when they saw countless light dots coming through the mist, everyone stopped and looked at each other in dismay. They're coming. There are some on the left and right as well. Are they forcing us to retreat? Whoosh! As everyone discussed, the twin brothers shot out an axe light and two blade lights. The axe light and blade light were as fast as lightning, slashing into the depths of the mist. Pung, 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 pung. Continuous explosions resounded, and the dazzling flame light illuminated the entire fire forest. The mist on the path was also swept away by the shockwave, leaving no obstacles behind. Everyone looked forward and could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. They could not see the end of the line. What they saw was an overwhelming number of self-detonating fireworms. Among them, there were some fist-sized self-detonating fireworms with blue light flashing on their tails. On the other hand, although there were a lot of them, they were sparse, not even 1% of the ones at the front. The ones on the left and right sides were a bit more than the ones at the back. Jin Wanchuang turned his head and said, "This is the only way. Either we go forward or we go back. If we go back, then this ruin will have nothing to do with him, unless we can find a way to deal with these bugs. Since we came here together, we will naturally advance and retreat together. Now let's vote. Those who support moving forward, take one step forward, and those who support moving back, take one step back." The bugs were getting closer and closer, flying up and down. They didn't have much time left. Forward. The cold-looking youngster was the first to vote as he took a step forward. I also agree to move forward. The yellow-robed lady was the second. Agreed. Yi Chun and Murong Qingsheng moved forward at the same time. In the end, only the elder and the middle-aged lady didn't vote. Lin Yuxuan hesitated a bit, but still took a step forward. 9 against 2. Whether we vote or not, it is meaningless. The elder took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then let's go forward. The middle-aged lady's face was bitter. She couldn't go back alone. The treasure was too tempting, and she would definitely regret it when she went back. At this moment, the elder said again, "The bugs will be attracted by blood chi. Only by approaching them will they come over. We have to be fast, and don't try to kill them. On the other hand, if the blood chi is reserved, it won't come near." The yellow-robed lady suddenly said. The elder said bitterly, "How could it be that easy? Reserved blood chi is useless against the bugs. As long as you are still alive, they will be able to sense your blood chi." The yellow-robed lady smiled without replying. Could she be able to do that? Yi Chen sensed a non-committal expression flash past the yellow-robed lady's face, which made him suspicious. All right, since everyone has agreed, then from now on, don't think about anything else. Take out all the things that can be used for defense. Don't be afraid of wasting them. Jin Wanchuang activated his defensive armor. He didn't carry any weapons in his hands, but 2 shields, one big and one small. The big one was as tall as a human, while the small one was only 1 meter. The others also had a lot of stock. Just like Jin Wan Shuang, they all held shields and activated their defensive armors. They were all armed to the teeth, looking like warriors who were about to enter the battlefield. Charge! The group of 11 people flew forward at their fastest speed. Due to the invisible power in the ruins, their speed was only 1% of their speed on land. The self-exploding flaming bugs were a kind of fierce bug that was extremely sensitive to blood chi. Everyone revolved their Zhen Yuan, causing their blood chi to become even more exuberant. Without a doubt, the self-exploding flaming bugs were even more attractive to them. One by one, they flew over and then developed into groups. As far as the eye could see, the sky was filled with light spots. Boom, 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 boom. Flames shrouded everyone, along with a series of metal exploding sounds. It was the sound of the bugs hitting the metal shields. Go! The upper rank shield in his hand was destroyed. Yi Chun shook his Zhen Yuan, and the shield flew out along with a wave of fireflies. He then took out another shield, and the one that he had thrown away disappeared into the distance with a ball of flame. The speed at which the shields were being destroyed was too fast. Upper-grade shields would not be able to last for a long time, and only the semi-extreme grade shields could slightly withstand this kind of explosion. Unfortunately, shields were one of the rarer artifacts, and everyone only had 1 or 2 semi-extreme grade shields on them. At most, they would take out one, since no one would use all of their semi-extreme grade shields on the exploding firebugs. Therefore, the upper-grade shields had become the fastest consumable. After dozens of breaths, everyone had already used up dozens of shields, which was a horrifying sight to behold. Pung! All of a sudden, a 10 times louder sound exploded, and the group's formation was torn apart. Yi Chun looked over. Unknowingly, those fist-sized fireflies with their tails flickering with blue light had also joined the attack. Their self-detonation power was 10 times that of ordinary fireflies. Chapter 785. After splitting up, the crowd did not dare to be careless. Not only did they not slow down, they even activated their secret arts, increasing their speed drastically. Of course, no one dared to collide with the blue fireflies. They were all trying their best to avoid them. Even if they could not avoid them, they would still send out an attack to take them down. As time went by, everyone began to understand the terror of the exploding firebugs more and more. Normal attacks were useless against the exploding firebugs. There seemed to be an invisible membrane around their bodies, which had the effect of neutralizing chi power. Only extremely condensed attacks could hit the exploding firebugs from a distance and make them explode. On the other hand, the exploding firebugs could actually ignore their protective Zhen Yuan to a certain extent. If it were not for the shields in their hands, they would have already been blown to pieces. Dark force field. Dozens of blue fireflies flew over from Yi Chun and Murong Qingqing's side. The ordinary fireflies numbered in the thousands, and their speed was extremely fast. Murong Qingqing's expression turned serious. Her body suddenly flickered with purple-black electric arcs. As the electric arcs appeared, a twisting force field spread out, enveloping the fireflies and the surroundings. Buzz! All the fireflies that approached were bounced off, unable to move an inch closer. When Murong Qingqing was still at clasping Yuan realm, she had already mastered the Sky Demon force field. But now the Sky Demon force field had naturally been eliminated. According to the characteristics of the Sky Demon Great Art, Murong Qingqing had researched the Dark Force Field based on the Dark Profound. Compared to the Sky Demon Force Field, the Dark Force Field had reached a whole new level. It was like comparing the magnetic field of a human body to the magnetic field of a star. With the protection of the Dark Force Field, Yi Chun and Murong Qingqing immediately felt a lot more relaxed. I didn't expect the force field to be so useful at this moment. Yi Chun sighed. Murong Qingqing's dark force field had yet to reach a profound level. Using it to deal with a half-step king of the same level, it was naturally insufficient and ineffective. However, it was more than enough to deal with the self-detonating flaming bugs. This was like the saying, everything has its counter. Murong Qingqing said, previously I didn't understand the characteristics of the self-detonating fireflies. That's why I tried using the darkness force field to block them. The effect is better than I expected. Yichin smiled and said, with the darkness force field, we can come and go as we please. The sudden silence on their side naturally aroused the suspicions of the others. Immediately, 8 or 9 soul forces scanned over. The middle-aged woman's eyes lit up and a look of ecstasy flashed across her face. Among everyone here, she was the one in the most sorry state. The successive explosions had already caused her to suffer considerable internal injuries. If it wasn't for her profound cultivation and several secret techniques that could lock her injuries and prevent them from worsening, she would have long since been smashed into pieces. Even so, she also began to despair. This small path seemed to have no end, and just like the small path, there was no end to the self-exploding fireflies. They were innumerable. If this continued, she would be blown to death sooner or later. At this moment, seeing that Murong Qingsheng had a secret technique to restrain the fireflies, how could she not be ecstatic? Disregarding everything else, the middle-aged woman urged her Jinyuan and turned toward Murong Qingsheng's direction with her shield in hand. She wanted to seek shelter and leave this damn place. Not only the middle-aged woman, but the others also rapidly approached. Among them, there were some who were confident in passing through the small path, but they would certainly consume a lot of energy. At this moment, a shelter had suddenly appeared. Who would be stupid enough to not accept it? Buzz. The middle-aged woman was just about to approach, but unexpectedly, an invisible force field bounced her back. Normally, she could naturally break through the force field, but at this moment, this force field was her only hope. You. The middle-aged woman's face was full of grievance and anger. Miss, we are now a team, so we should help each other. How about this? I promise on behalf of them that as long as we find a treasure, not only will you be the first to choose, you will also get 10% more. How about it? Does everyone agree? Jin Wanshuang was indeed worthy of being an experienced person. At this moment, he knew that it would not be good for anyone to fall out. Moreover, before coming here, no one had thought that they would need to seek shelter. It was true that they were a team, but when there was only one person who could protect the others, it was a completely different matter. Finishing his words, Jin Wanshuang turned to the others. He believed that they would make the right choice. 10% more, but only for the first time. The twin brothers nodded, then shook their heads. All right, I have no objections. Me too. Everyone agreed. They did not know how long the small path was, and they did not dare to joke around with their lives. Let them in, Yichin said to Murong Qingsheng. Murong Qingsheng faintly nodded and opened a gap in the dark force field, letting everyone in. Pop! As soon as they entered, the fireflies followed the blood chi. However, the dark force field had already closed up, and they were bounced away. Maintaining the dark force field, Murong Qingsheng led everyone and continued to advance. In fact, she did not let the middle-aged woman in at the beginning, not because of her personal benefits, but because of her personal principles. If you want to come in, then come in. What do you think I am? At this moment, she could not take a single step back. She had to maintain her position, or else others would take it for granted. Although it would not cause any irreconcilable conflict, it was still a problem. The reason Yi-chan did not stop her before was because he knew why Murong Qingsheng wanted to do this. Only after everyone expressed their opinions did he let Murong Qingsheng open the dark force field. The length of the small path was beyond everyone's imagination. After flying for a cup of tea's worth of time, they still could not see the end. At this moment, everyone's displeasure was completely gone. Compared to the extra 10% of the treasures, they did not lose out at all. On the contrary, they had profited. This kind of length was something that no one among them could pass safely. They would have to pay some price, perhaps even their lives. Moreover, they still could not see the end. Who knew how long it would be? Jin Wanshuang also had the same thought. He smiled at Murong Qingsheng and said, "Many thanks." Murong Qingsheng nodded and did not say anything else. Another cup of tea's worth of time passed, and everyone finally saw the end. They all let out a breath, getting rid of their previous gloominess. Plop! At the end of the small path, everyone landed. Looking back, he saw that the fireflies were like headless flies, flying around aimlessly. It was as if they could not sense the presence of blood chi. After a while, all of the fireflies dispersed and flew into the blazing forest, disappearing without a trace. Finally made it. Jin Wanchuang laughed. Your force field is rather special. It should be driven by profound, right? The yellow-robed woman looked at Murong Qingcheng with interest. Same here. Murong Qingcheng said a thought-provoking sentence. The yellow-robed woman was dazed at first, then slightly surprised. She did not say anything and retreated to the side. This woman is really hard to understand. Yichen said. Both of them had already noticed that when they were attacked by the self-exploding, flaming worms, all 10 of them were flustered. Only the yellow-clothed woman had very few self-exploding, flaming worms around her. Thinking back to what the yellow-clothed woman had said before, that as long as she restrained her blood chi, she would not be attacked, it was not difficult to guess what was going on. Of course, the two did not believe that the others were fools. They must have noticed the peculiarity of a yellow-robed woman, but just did not say it out loud. The extremely dangerous small path landed behind them. In front of everyone's eyes was a golden palace. The palace's door was tightly shut, looking majestic. Open. Jin Wanchuang saw that the palace's door was not covered by any restrictions, so he slapped his palm toward the metal door. Rumble. The doors of the palace that had been closed for countless years finally opened. It was as if a door to the past had been opened to the crowd. Everyone held their breath and stared unblinkingly at the gradually opening palace, afraid to miss the most exciting moment. The palace's door finally opened completely. All of a sudden, a spirit chi light pillar shot out from the door. No one had expected such a change. None of them could dodge in time and were hit by the light pillar. However, no one was injured. Instead, they felt refreshed. This spirit chi light pillar did not have any offensive power. Once it hit them, they absorbed a lot of it. This is the spirit chi emitted by spirit stones. The middle-aged woman exclaimed. How many spirit stones are needed to gather such a dense spirit chi light pillar? That rush just now seemed to have recovered some of the Zhen Yuan I had consumed. The two brothers opened their mouths wide. Let's go in first. Jin Wanchuang took a deep breath and walked into the palace. The group followed behind him. The palace wasn't very big, and it was decorated with gold and jade. Bright crystal lamps hung from the ceiling, and the floor was paved with priceless white jade bricks. In the center of the palace, there was a huge formation. The formation was circular, and there were countless patterns carved in the center. It was incomparably beautiful. What attracted everyone's attention wasn't the formation, but the spirit stones that were pushed into the formation. A small mountain of spirit stones. All of them were high-grade spirit stones. Next to the small mountain of spirit stones were 7 or 8 small chests, their lids already open. Inside were all sorts of power gems of various attributes: red, blue, green, black, yellow, pink, purple, and everything else. So many upper-grade spirit stones. How many are there? And 7 to 8 chests of energy gems. Everyone's mouths were wide open, unable to say anything. The elder was the first to recover. He cleared his throat and said, there are at least 500 million upper-grade spirit stones and 7 chests of energy gems. Not a wasted trip. Not a wasted trip. The yellow-faced man's face was full of joy. Although they had come for treasures and did not care much about upper-grade spirit stones, when they reached a certain level, no one would not be tempted. They were no exception. One must know that with their net worth, having 10 to 20 million upper spirit stones was already the limit, and this was under the premise that they did not consume much. If they bought some priceless items and participated in a few auctions, their net worth would be reduced by at least a few times. 500 million upper-grade spirit stones would be at least 40 to 50 million per person. Adding the energy gems, it would be at least 50 to 60 million. Chapter 786. What kind of concept was 50 to 60 million? It was almost equivalent to 10 half-step kings' net worth. Entering that kind of huge auction, they would be almost invincible. Of course, The premise was that there were no life and death king's parents. After all, although 50 to 60 million was a lot, it was not much for life and death king. A life and death king could casually go to a king-grade forbidden zone or find some treasures in the starry sky and sell them for hundreds of millions. But no matter what, 50 to 60 million was a shocking amount of wealth for most of the half-step kings. If they encountered it, they would definitely not let it go. Jin Wanchuang let out a breath and said, "According to what we said before, this Lady Murong will get an extra 10% of the treasures. In other words, we will first take out 10% of the upper-grade spirit stones and give it to her. The remaining 90% will be split among the 11 of us. Does anyone have any objections?" Jin Wanchuang did not let the upper-rank spirit stones go to his head. Keeping promises was the basic requirement of forming a team. If he broke his promise because of a large amount of upper-rank spirit stones, how could he expect others to keep their promises? As the leader of this team, Jin Wanchuang had the obligation to keep his promise. He did not want the team to fall apart because of him, which was not in line with his personal principles. Taking a step back, they had not even explored a third of the ruins, and there would definitely be other treasures later on. There was no need to create irreconcilable conflicts over the first batch of treasures, which was not rational at all. 10% is more than 50 million upper-rank spirit stones. The twin brother was a money grubber, so he was quite reluctant. "What? You two don't plan to keep your promise?" Jin Wanchuang's face sank. How could that be? Although 50 million is a lot, it would only be a few million after splitting it evenly. We two brothers can still see the big picture. The older twin brother grinned. "I'll listen to my brother." The younger twin brother also said, "What about you guys?" Jin Wanchuang looked at the others. "I have no objections. We've already made a deal. Why we go back on our words? A few million upper-rank spirit stones is not enough for me to throw away my face." The middle-aged woman snorted. The most troublesome ones have been dealt with, so the others did not have any objections. "All right, let's start counting the upper-rank spirit stones." Jin Wanchuang revealed a smile and walked over. Seeing this, Yi Chun smiled faintly. A darkness force field had earned him 50 million upper spiritual stones. This was a very good deal. Unfortunately, there were times when things did not go as one wished. Just when everyone was about to count the number of upper spiritual stones, a group of people suddenly appeared at the other end of the teleportation formation. This group of people was one less than Yi Chen's group, but the aura they emitted was even stronger. And among them, the leader was the golden-haired young master of the Golden Lion clan, Shi Xiaobao. Shi Xiaobao had a tall stature, at least 2 or 3 meters tall. He had broad shoulders, a golden complexion, and a pair of golden eyes that emitted a resplendent golden radiance. But this alone was not enough to worry Yi Chun. What worried Yi Chun was that among the people standing next to Shi Xiaobao, there were a few that he could not see through back in the tea house. For example, there was a bald fatty with a tattoo on his head, a middle-aged scholar carrying a sword, a middle-aged woman with a sinister aura, and a short old man wearing a raincoat. Apart from them, although Yi Chun had never seen the others besides Shi Xiaobao, none of them could be underestimated. They were not at all inferior to their side, and there were even 1 or 2 that surpassed them. The sudden arrival of the uninvited guests caused Jin Wanchuang's group to tense up. Each of them stared at the other side, and the atmosphere became extremely tense. "I'm afraid we're going to have a big battle," Murong Qingcheng said gravely. Yi Chen nodded, "Unless everyone can sit down and divide the spirit stones equally. But that's obviously impossible, so we can only have a big battle." There were too many things that happened in ancient ruins because of wealth, so it would be strange if there weren't any great battles. Moreover, everyone was already used to this sudden great battle, so they wouldn't have any complaints, nor would they cower in the slightest. "Haha, so many top-grade spirit stones. The heavens are indeed blessing me," Shi Xiaobao. Walking out of the teleportation array, Shi Xiaobao ignored everyone and laughed arrogantly. His golden hair fluttered in the wind like a golden flame. "Hee, why do I see a few flies?" The bald fatty's body moved horizontally, and he stood beside Shi Xiaobao like a lump of meat, trembling incessantly. However, this person's mouth was too sharp, immediately belittling Yi Chen's group. Just like Shi Xiaobao, he did not put them in his eyes, just slapped them to death. There was also a middle-aged woman on Shi Xiaobao's side. Although she did not look like the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side, and her figure was a bit sturdier, her aura was a bit similar. Being stared at by her small eyes was like being stared at by a venomous snake. On this side, Jin Wanshuang did not speak, but looked at everyone else. This was not a battle of one person, but a battle of one team against another. He needed to ask everyone's opinion. If a few people did not agree, then there would be no need to fight, since they would not be able to win anyway. Those who block the way shall die. The apathetic youngster who had been silent all this while coldly looked at Shi Xiaobao's group and spat out these words. Faintly nodding, Jin Wanshuang looked at the others. Those who obstruct us brothers from getting rich are all people who deserve to die. Killing those who deserve to die is our greatest pleasure. The twin brothers had a fiery temperament. Forcing them to retreat was worse than killing them. The younger twin brother could no longer hold back and was about to attack. His eyes were filled with savagery, and there was no trace of his previous naive appearance. When Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng were invited to the secret pavilion, Yi Chen had already seen this kind of expression. He naturally knew that these two could not be judged by their appearance. That chick is not bad. The yellow-faced man had suffered at Yi Chen's hands. On the way, he did not look at Murong Qingcheng with his lustful eyes, only sneaking a few glances. But now his true nature was exposed. His naked eyes constantly scanned the young woman on Shi Xiaobao's right, as if he could see something he should not see through her clothes. I'm old, and I don't have many years left. The only ancient old man sighed and said something unimportant. However, when they heard it, it sounded a bit sinister. Leave that old woman to me. The middle-aged woman did not like the middle-aged woman in front of her. She was too ugly. Now, only the yellow-robed woman, Lin Yushuan, and Yi Chun and Murong Qingcheng remained. However, Jin Wanshuang retracted his gaze, not intending to ask anything. He couldn't see through the yellow-robed woman, but if she was a kind person, then he would have wasted his eyes. Yi Chun and Murong Qingcheng, just from their baleful auras, one could tell that they had killed many people, especially Yi Chun, whose baleful aura was heavier than anyone else's. Jin Wanshuang admitted that he had underestimated Yi Chun. Perhaps this person was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Lin Yushuan was young and frivolous. This kind of person was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of tiger. Roar! The twin brothers roared savagely. Their footsteps shook the air as their killing intent and savagery filled the air. They were itching to immediately kill their way over. A bunch of ants dares to clamor in front of me? I'll tear you apart alive. Shi Xiaobao's expression was cold and sinister. Shi Xiaobao, I've seen your strength long ago, but I have yet to exchange blows with you. Today, you and I will have a decisive battle. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Lin Yushuan stepped forward, boasting shamelessly. A youth behind Shi Xiaobao walked out. He looked even younger than Lin Yushuan, around 20 years of age. His face was as white as powder, and he was waving a fan. Whether I'm boasting shamelessly or not, you'll know soon enough. Shi Xiaobao, do you dare to fight me? If not, then leave this place immediately. Lin Yushuan took out his weapon, which was a halberd. Right now, the two sides were evenly matched, and both were experts. Whoever backed down first would not only lose face, but also their pride. Experts paid great attention to their pride. Only when facing an undefeatable opponent would they put away. However, they naturally wouldn't think that their opponent was an undefeatable opponent. How could they back down? Not even half a step. A great battle was about to begin. You're not qualified to fight me. Zhao Shirwan, you go fight him. Shi Xiaobao said to the pale-faced youth waving his fan. That's for the best. The pale-faced youth walked out, standing in the center of the battlefield. He slightly raised his head, arrogantly looking at Lin Yushuan. Then let's fight. Lin Yushuan's face was ashen. The radiance in his eyes seemed to have materialized and shot out, as if wanting to pierce through his opponent. Courting death. The pale-faced youth suddenly counterattacked. Let's exchange blows. This wasn't a challenge, but a battle for wealth. How could he just sit and watch the winner be decided? Coincidentally, the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side and Shi Xiaobao's side walked out at the same time, slowly approaching each other. When they were about 100 meters away, their bodies instantly turned illusory, as if trying to confuse their opponent. However, when both of them did this, their killing intent became even more awe-inspiring. Roar! Shi Xiaobao's golden hair fluttered as he soared into the sky. Golden demonic energy burst out from his body and swept through the entire palace, causing many people's blood and qi to boil, inwardly aghast. This was a young super expert, as well as the most arrogant young master of the Golden Lion clan. He wouldn't allow others to defy him, and now he was about to take action. Leave it to me. As the captain of Yi Chen's side, Jin Wanshuang stepped out without hesitation. With each step, the metallic luster on the surface of his body increased by a bit. After 10 steps, his entire body seemed to have turned into a metallic man, emitting a dazzling luster. You guys go and kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Shi Xiaobao's voice rumbled as he charged at Jin Wanshuang. Boom! The battlefield boiled. Shi Xiaobao's words were akin to igniting a barrel of gunpowder. Everyone's expression turned sinister, revealing their killing intent. Chapter 787. Kill. The indifferent young man found the middle-aged scholar who was holding a longsword. Both of them were rare experts. Once they started fighting, only sword lights and sword shadows could be seen. It was impossible to see the two of them. Even the surrounding people avoided them. Swordsman was a synonym for attack power. Both of them had similar strength. When they met a swordsman, their momentum would be weaker. When two swordsmen fought with their lives on the line, it was definitely a terrifying scene. I'm old, just a bag of old bones. The weathered old man's figure flashed and floated over to the strange old man in the raincoat. When the old man in the raincoat saw an old man like him, he curled his lips and said strangely, I hate dealing with old men the most. They are old and smelly. Change one. I'm afraid it won't be as you wish. The weathered old man laughed. A black cane appeared in his hand, and he attacked. Damn it! The old man's body slid to the side, avoiding this attack. While he was slipping, it actually started to drizzle. The raindrops fell on his raincoat and slid down. The old man gave people the feeling of a ghost in the rain, light and evil. This old man is quite hard to deal with. The weathered old man frowned and started a fight with his opponent. The middle-aged man wanted to find the young girl, but halfway, he was stopped by the bald fatty. He was so angry that his face turned purple. He held a shield in one hand and a spear in the other, fiercely attacking the bald fatty. It seemed like there was an irreconcilable grudge between them. As for the twin brothers, they were a bit unkind. The two of them did not separate from each other. 2 against 1, they faced off against a guy wearing a mask. The elder brother's giant axe was like a falling mountain, while the younger brother's twin blades were like fire and water. The two of them cooperated seamlessly, forcing the masked guy into a difficult situation. He was mumbling something. Among the remaining 3, the yellow-clothed girl randomly found an opponent and started a fight. It seemed like she didn't have much ability. Murong Qingqing's opponent was the young girl that the middle-aged man had his eyes on. The two of them also started a fight. In the end, only Yi Chun was left. It seems like only the two of us are left. On the other side, the skinny middle-aged man who looked like a drying pole looked at Yi Chun with an ugly smile. His skinny fingers even dug his ears. Yeah, Yi Chun smiled faintly. In that case, let's not waste time. I'll let you have 3 moves first. How about it? The skinny man flicked his ear wax and smiled. All right then. Yi Chun walked over step by step with a gentle smile on his face. The two seemed to be exchanging pointers, not a life and death battle. Shoo! All of a sudden, Yi Chun took 1 step forward as his Thunder Disaster Sword was taken out of its scabbard, slicing through his opponent's body. It was so fast that the air did not even have the time to vibrate. His opponent could not even feel that Yi Chun had already taken out his sword, only seeing his body shake. After doing all this, an ordinary person would have put away their sword, since the opponent was already dead. However, a sneer appeared on the corner of Yi Chen's mouth as he suddenly turned around and stabbed out. Ding! The cold light clashed, and a figure flew backward. On the other hand, the skinny middle-aged man behind Yi Chen was only a clone. It was just that this clone was extremely plump. From the outside, it was impossible to tell at all. Even using soul power to scan it, one could not find anything. Moreover, at this critical moment, who would have the time to carefully plan and kill the opponent first? Who would have thought that the skinny middle-aged man had already prepared for this? It seemed like his real body was already hiding in a corner before the battle even started. Unfortunately, his opponent was Yi Chen. What kind of person was Yi Chen? His soul power was 5 times that of an ordinary person. Adding on his cautious nature, it had always been him sneak attacking others. Therefore, in Yi Chen's opinion, the skinny middle-aged man's actions were merely a show to him. He would play along with the opponent, since he wouldn't lose anything in the end. Yi Chen's counterattack startled the skinny middle-aged man. The number of people who had died under this method was too many to count. He had already lost count of how many people he had killed, apart from those whose strength was too high to assassinate. Yi Chen was the first person with a peak C of Soul Realm cultivation base to see through this move of his. How could he not be shocked? What? Didn't you say you let me have 3 moves? Yi Chen looked at the opponent with a sneer. The skinny middle-aged man retracted his astonishment and smiled. I only said my clone would let you have 3 moves, not my real body. You didn't hear me clearly. Is that so? How about I let you have 3 moves first? You let me have 3 moves first. The skinny middle-aged man was a bit confused. However, thinking of Yi Chen's shrewdness, he still shook his head. No, I'm afraid of being cheated by you. To be honest, I've never seen someone as shrewd as an old fox at your age. Hee hee, you're overpraising me. Let's see what I can do. Yi Chen suddenly attacked. The Thunder Disaster sword drew a transparent arc in the void, its tip pointing straight at the middle-aged man's forehead. Before the sword arrived, a sharp sword chi had already locked onto the opponent. No matter how many tricks the opponent had, it would be impossible to confuse Yi Chen. I found a tough one. The skinny middle-aged man inwardly cursed his bad luck. Waving his bony palm in the air, a silver-black ghost claw stretched out, covering all the vital points of Yi Chen's body. Ding, 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 ding. The two fought fast against fast, and the middle-aged man's strength was not something Yi Chen dared to underestimate. Yi Chen was sure that apart from a small portion of the people present, everyone else's strength was about the same. It would be impossible to win without paying a price. Yi Chen also didn't dare to say that he could easily defeat the middle-aged man, because both sides hadn't used their killing moves yet. They were still at the stage of testing each other's strength. Rumble. 10 battles suddenly erupted in the palace. Jin Wanshuang against Shi Xiaobao, the cold-faced youngster against the middle-aged scholar, Lin Yushuan against the pale-faced youngster, the middle-aged woman against the middle-aged woman, the weathered old man against the raincoat old man, the twin brothers against the masked man, the yellow-robed woman against the curly-bearded man, Murong Qingcheng against the young woman, and Yi Chen against the skinny, middle-aged man. The 10 battles were all spread out, each occupying an area. The entire palace had turned into a battlefield. Only the upper-rank spirit stones in the center of the palace, which was enveloped by a spirit array, did not erupt. Fortunately, there was a spirit array there. Otherwise, the superimposed chi strength would inevitably destroy all 500 million upper-rank spirit stones, leaving nothing behind. Apart from this, the palace itself was also protected by a restriction. Therefore, no matter how big the commotion was, it couldn't shake the palace. Whenever someone's attack landed on the palace walls, it would be absorbed by a layer of light without any sound or influence. The battles were too bitter, and everyone was fighting with their lives on the line. This was different from the previous battles. Among the 10 battles, which one of them wasn't concealing their strength? Each of them was a rare powerhouse under life and death realm with countless killing moves and trump cards. Of course, The most magnificent battle was naturally between Jin Wanchuang and Shi Xiaobao. Both of them were at the top of their respective squads. At this moment, they were no longer holding back, displaying everything they had learned and attacking each other with all their might. Lion King Claw. Shi Xiaobao furiously roared. His right hand turned into a huge lion claw and fiercely struck at Jin Wanchuang. The energy carried by the claw pierced through metal and stone, causing space to distort. Clang! Jin Wanchuang didn't hold back. He extended his palm and clenched it into a fist. This fist was shining with a silvery radiance, as if it was forged from silver. However, no one would think of it as silver because this fist was countless times harder than silver. Even diamond would not be able to compare to it. Amidst a loud sound, Jin Wanchuang's fist shattered the Lion King claw and kicked at Shi Xiaobao's head. Courting death, Shi Xiaobao stretched out his left hand and grabbed Jin Wanchuang's ankle. Exerting strength in his arm, he lifted Jin Wanchuang and spun him several times in the air. An ordinary person would have long since become dizzy and lose all their battle strength, let alone the ability to counterattack. However, Jin Wanchuang was not an ordinary person. As if he couldn't feel the spinning, his fists repeatedly struck Shi Xiaobao's protective Zhenyuan, causing his blood and qi to boil. Scram! Shi Xiaobao furiously roared and threw Jin Wanchuang. With a slap, Jin Wanchuang's feet stomped on the palace wall and borrowed the rebound force to attack Shi Xiaobao again. His strength and reaction speed were truly frightening. Roar! Shi Xiaobao couldn't endure this kind of attack, and finally reverted to his true form. The air suddenly distorted, and a 12-meter-long golden lion appeared in front of everyone. This golden lion had 4 pillar-like limbs and sharp claws. Its golden mane was draped behind its head, shining with a golden radiance as if it was forged from gold. Compared to the silver on Jin Wanchuang's body, the two colors were distinct. One gold, one silver. Roar! Shi Xiaobao roared again and suddenly leaped up, attacking Jin Wanchuang. His huge body allowed him to take countless steps forward with a single step. With a flicker, he appeared above Jin Wanchuang's head and ruthlessly stomped down with the pressure of Mount Tai. Dream on! Jin Wanchuang crossed his arms above his head, blocking the claws. Creak! The two were in a deadlock. After reverting to his true form, Shi Xiaobao became more and more violent. How could he tolerate such a situation? With a slight movement of his right claw, his huge head reached down and bit at Jin Wanchuang's head. If he was bitten, it wouldn't be as simple as a light injury. He would definitely be split in two. However, Jin Wanchuang didn't only have this much ability. His eyes turned silver, and his hair stood up like a silver hedgehog. Resisting the pressure, he clenched his left fist and punched at one of Shi Xiaobao's huge teeth, producing an intense sound of metal colliding. Shi Xiaobao was forced back a step, and cracks appeared on his teeth. He couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. This was the first time he had suffered a loss. Apart from Shi Xiaobao and Jin Wanchuang's side, the others were also in a miserable state. Although they weren't as majestic as this place, they were exceptionally murderous. The cold-faced youngster and the middle-aged scholar had already exchanged hundreds of moves. In these hundreds of moves, both sides had suffered a small loss. After all, in a fight between sword artists, the moment they saw a flaw, they would strike it. Using speed to fight speed, the slightest flaw would be fatal. The cold-faced youngster's shoulder was struck by a sword, and there was a bloody mark on his chest. On the other hand, the middle-aged scholar's hair was disheveled, and his abdomen and leg were both struck by a sword. The two were evenly matched, and it seemed like they didn't know each other well. It was still too early to decide the victor. However, in a fight between the same level, the victor could only be decided in the later stages. Only then would the small advantages and disadvantages be magnified to the point that they couldn't be ignored. However, as time passed, some people began to fall into a disadvantageous position. The first to fall into a disadvantageous position was the yellow-faced man. His opponent was a bald fatty with a tattoo on his head. This fatty was extremely hard to deal with. Just like the fat on his body, the Zhenyuan he had cultivated was extremely slippery. When the spear stabbed forward, it was soft but not strong. The yellow-faced man became more and more powerless, and many bloody marks appeared on his body. He was suppressed to the point where he couldn't even raise his head. Dying by my hands? It's not bad to say it out loud. The bald fatty seemed to be handling the situation with ease. Up until now, it seemed he hadn't used his full strength. His palms were the size of palms, and as they slammed out, a dense mass of thick vibrational energy could be felt. The yellow-faced man had suffered from this vibrational energy, and every time they exchanged blows, he could feel minute injuries appearing in his body. Over time, these minute injuries would accumulate, and it would be terrifying. Dying. The yellow-faced man suddenly threw out the shield in his hand, slashing at the bald fatty's head while blocking the latter's vision. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the yellow-faced man suddenly leaped up, and his body split into three. The three of them attacked at the same time, creating layers of spear shadows. Unexpectedly, the bald fatty's movement technique was 10 times better than what the yellow-faced man had imagined. This kind of movement technique, let alone a fatty, even a person as light as a swallow might not be able to display it so elegantly. However, the bald fatty gave people a feeling of elegance. His figure flashed, and the bald fatty dodged the shield, suddenly appearing below the yellow-faced man. His eyes narrowed, and his small eyes couldn't be seen anymore as he pushed out both hands. The yellow-faced man had split into 3 figures, and they had a confusing effect. The bald fatty indeed couldn't see through them, so he pushed out 2 palms. Out of the 3, 2 hit. The success rate was higher than 50%. If he didn't hit, then it could only be said that the yellow-faced man's luck was too good. In fact, the yellow-faced man's luck wasn't that good. Out of the 2 figures that were hit, one was his real body. Puff! The bald fatty's fleshy palm was plump and strangely powerful. The yellow-faced man was hit in the crotch, and his whole body was thrown high into the air. His lower part was smashed into a pile, and his stomach was pierced through. Due to the powerful pressure, the yellow-faced man's blood didn't come from his mouth, but from the top of his head. His head suddenly exploded, turning into a bloody mist. At this point, Yi Chen's side had lost 1 person. This wasn't the end. The battle between the middle-aged woman and the middle-aged woman also ended. The one who died was the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side. I've roamed the Jianghu for so many years, but this is the first time I've met someone more sinister than me. I deserve to die. The middle-aged woman stood upright on the ground. Her back was full of silver needles, and the real fatal wounds were the 2 silver needles on the soles of her feet. It turned out that the middle-aged woman on Shi Xiaobao's side had placed the silver needles on the ground from time to time during the battle, waiting for her opponent to step on them. Such a small trick couldn't have been hidden from the middle-aged woman on Yi Chen's side. However, she had already refined the silver needles into her body, forcing them out from the soles of her feet and hiding them in the ground around her. Therefore, the one who lost this battle wasn't because they were weak, but because they weren't as sinister as the other side. They hadn't expected that the other side would use such an unimaginable trick. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen's side lost 2 people. In terms of numbers, the balance shifted towards Shi Xiaobao's side. The strength of both sides was about the same, and Yi Chen's side seemed a bit weaker. Losing 2 people at once was simply a devastating disaster. It was like a tug of war. Both sides were evenly matched, but as long as the other side exerted a little more strength, it would lead to an overwhelming victory. Chapter 788. You 2 brothers should be barbarians, right? I've never fought with such a powerful half-step barbarian king. Let's see if your brute force is stronger or if my palm energy is stronger. The bald fatty swept his gaze and fell on the twin brothers who were besieging the masked man. Both of them were powerful half-step kings. 2 against 1. Even if the masked man's strength reached the heavens, he was still beaten to the point of spurting out blood. If not for the fact that the 2 brothers had too few variations in their moves, the masked man would have long since been chopped into meat paste. With his body as light as a swallow, The bald fatty floated to the masked man's side and extended his chubby palm, blocking the elder brother's axe. The elder brother was called Daer Xiong, and the younger brother was Daer Ba. In the deep-sea barbarian race, they were known as the Daer brothers. They were the most famous geniuses of the race. Unable to bear the rules of the barbarian race, the two brothers had come out to roam the world. Relying on their powerful defense and combined strength, they had been doing very well and had never suffered a loss. Seeing a fat guy like a big white pig running over and stopping the two brothers from joining hands, Daer Xiong was enraged. Wielding the axe with one hand, he doubled his strength. Creak! The pressure on the bald fatty increased sharply. His knees slightly softened, and the ground beneath his feet vibrated, producing a sound of metal twisting. Good heavens! His strength is close to 1,000,000 gene. The bald fatty's eyes widened as blue veins popped out on his forehead. With a roar, he inflated like a balloon and sent Daer Xiong flying. Brother! Daer Ba turned to look at Daer Xiong. Daer Xiong waved his hand and said, "I'll leave the masked man to you. I'll deal with this big, white pig. Remember, don't ruin the reputation of us Daer brothers." "Of course not. My blood is boiling." Daer Ba turned his head and looked at the masked man with a different gaze. His eyes were like two flames, burning fiercely as a wild power gradually awakened in his body. "Fuck, madman." The masked man was in a miserable state. These two brothers had incomparably powerful, fleshly bodies, no different from monsters. Perhaps even body-refining experts of the same level would be somewhat inferior to them. Seems like I have to use 20% of my strength. A dangerous light flashed in the masked man's eyes. On this side, the bald fatty helped the masked man share some of the pressure. On the other side, the middle-aged woman went to help the curly-bearded man deal with the yellow-clothed woman. She could see that the yellow-clothed woman's strength was unfathomable, and the curly-bearded man was most likely not her opponent. If the other party got serious, the curly-bearded man would be finished. As for Shi Xiaobao, the middle-aged scholar, and the raincoat old man, they didn't need her help. The other's opponents weren't very strong, so she didn't bother to consider them. "Oh, another one. Are you trying to bully me with numbers?" The yellow-robed woman lightly patted with her slender palm. Not only was the curly-bearded man's fierce strength neutralized, but his body was also pushed back by a gentle force, causing him to stagger. With a faint smile, the yellow-robed woman drew a circle in the air with her left hand, and all the silver needles were fixed there. Soft, profound meaning. The middle-aged woman walked over. "Not bad. You've also comprehended the soft ultimacy, right?" The woman in yellow said. The middle-aged woman didn't answer directly. She said to the curly-bearded man, "You've comprehended the profound of toughness, while I've comprehended the profound of gentleness. Let's work together to deal with her." "All right." The curly-bearded man didn't hesitate at all. The threat that the yellow-robed woman gave him was too great. Her aura was like maggots in one's bones. Once touched, it would be hard to get rid of. He didn't know how much power she had used, but he himself had already used 90% of his power. The reason why he didn't use his full power was because if his power increased, the opponent's power would also increase. He didn't dare to use all of his power. Since the middle-aged woman proposed to work together, he naturally wouldn't refuse. The two of them stood on the left and right, vaguely surrounding the yellow-robed woman. The yellow-robed woman ignored them and said with a smile, "It seems like if I don't use some of my true power, I'll be beaten to death by you two. Bring it on." The middle-aged woman circulated her Zhen Yuan and focused her mind. Through her body, one could see that inside her body, there were countless silver needles following her meridians to her fingertips, soles of her feet, knees, and elbows. It was as if her body was a weapon that could shoot out silver needles from anywhere and kill people. Compared to the hidden killing intent here, the battle on the other side was much fiercer. The two sides were Lin Yuxuan and the pale-faced youngster. Since Lin Yuxuan dared to call himself Shi Xiaobao, he naturally had some ability. The bronze halberd in his hand danced like an azure dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The azure dragons roared and released a majestic aura that surrounded the pale-faced youngster. The pale-faced youngster's fighting style was similar to his appearance, leaning towards the feminine side. However, his feminine side was different from the yellow-robed woman's. The yellow-robed woman's feminine side gave off a feeling of hidden needles, while the pale-faced youngster's feminine side was more domineering. Waving his fan, the pale-faced youngster fanned away the azure dragon halberd lights. At the same time, his left hand wasn't idle either, occasionally giving Lin Yuxuan a sneak attack. His palm energy was unceasing, and the aftereffects were strangely strong. Water-like ripples spread out in the void, affecting Lin Yuxuan's follow-up movements. Soaring dragon breaking water. Lin Yuxuan roared. His whole body rose from the ground and thrust the 3-meter-long bronze halberd forward. With an indomitable will, the azure dragon halberd light soared into the sky. Come at me. The pale-faced youngster waved his fan 3 times at the azure dragon halberd light, and the two brushed past each other. Puff! Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Lin Yuxuan staggered and landed behind the pale-faced youngster. The pale-faced youngster didn't have a good time either. There was a cut on his shoulder with blood spurting out. One move. Both of them were injured. Rumble. In the sky above the palace, not far away, an intense aura exploded, radiating in all directions. One side was pure white, overbearing and condensed, while the other side was ink black, deep and gloomy. The two combatants were the young woman and Murong Qingsheng. One cultivated a pure and fierce martial art, while the other cultivated a dark martial art. It could be said that they were evenly matched. Neither of them could do anything to the other and could only clash again and again, hoping to suppress the other in terms of endurance. Dark force field. While retreating, Murong Qingqing's body suddenly flickered with purplish-black lightning, and a distorted force field enveloped the young woman. Puff! This force field contained a powerful repulsive force. Originally, the young woman shouldn't have been injured by this repulsive force. However, the two of them had clashed countless times and were already somewhat exhausted. Adding on that last clash, her blood and qi were still boiling, and she didn't have time to adjust her condition. Who would have thought that Murong Qingsheng still had this hidden card? Spurting out a mouthful of blood, the young woman was sent flying. Come back. Murong Qingqing's right hand made a grabbing motion in the air, forcibly pulling the young woman over. She used dark gravity. Don't go too far. The white Jin Yuan on the young woman's body started burning like a white sacred flame. With a shout, she punched at Murong Qingsheng, and white light shone brightly. Swish! A pair of black wings suddenly stretched out from Murong Qingqing's back. Black qi surged, and she disappeared in front of the young woman. That invincible punch naturally missed. Not good. The young woman hurriedly turned around and punched. Pum! Murong Qingsheng was blasted back, and the young woman spurted out another mouthful of blood. Richlight Ocean Span was a gathering place for experts. It could be said that experts were as common as clouds. Foursquare Island was one of the few flourishing islands in Richlight Ocean Span. Thus, every island here was naturally a gathering of experts. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the two sides fighting in the palace were all elites of Foursquare Island. Once they returned to their respective territories, they would be near invincible existences under life and death realm. Unfortunately, when experts met experts, invincible would become not so easy. For example, the skinny middle-aged man fighting with Yi Chun was an ordinary expert. If placed in true Spirit Continent, even if he didn't rank in the top 5, he would at least rank in the top 10. However, he was also unlucky to run into Yi Chun. His battle skills were worthless in front of Yi Chun, and his display of weakness was also useless in front of Yi Chun. In any case, Yi Chun was the kind of person who had no weaknesses. If one wanted to defeat him, one would have to use overwhelming superiority. Apart from this, there was no other way. The skinny middle-aged man was forced into a panic by Yi Chen's mysterious sword arts. His mysterious movement technique had become his trump card, and he couldn't gain the slightest upper hand. I don't believe it. The skinny middle-aged man was enraged. His body split into 9, and the 9 figures surrounded and attacked Yichun. Sometimes 2 against 1, sometimes 3 against 1. Sometimes he sent a clone to his death, fighting for an opportunity for the other clones and the main body. Go! Yichun leaped high and pointed with his left sword finger. Clang! 9 sword shadows shot out. Puff, 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 puff. The middle-aged man's clones were swept clean, and his main body retreated several steps. Die! Right at this moment, a skinny middle-aged man appeared in the void behind Yichun. Meanwhile, the main body, which had been pushed back several steps, turned into green smoke with a pung sound. It turned out that the doppelganger secret art cultivated by the skinny middle-aged man was an extremely powerful heaven-grade mid-rank secret art. Not only could it create a doppelganger, it could also create a fake body. Apart from not having any flesh or bones, the fake body was almost no different from the main body. The only weakness was that condensing a fake body required 40% of his Zhen Yuan. The ghost claw was like lightning as the middle-aged man clawed through Yichun's head. Not right. The middle-aged man's expression changed. The Yichun he had clawed through did not have a real body and was just a void. You have a cloning secret art, and I have a shadow profound martial art. The main body appeared behind the middle-aged man, and Yichun stabbed out with his sword, piercing through the middle-aged man's head and coming out from the middle of his eyebrows. Swoosh! Pulling out the sword, Yichun quickly retreated, while the middle-aged man fell on his back. This was his main body, not a clone or fake body. He did not expect that Yichun had also comprehended a shadow profound, and it was so profound that even he could not see through it. Huff! Landing on the ground, Yichun let out a breath of turbid air and thought to himself, it was not easy at all. In the battle with the middle-aged man, Yichun did not use his trump card because the middle-aged man had too many clones, and he could not lock on any of them at all. The latter would not give him the time to use it, and forcefully using it would only be a waste of Zhen Yuan. Of course, Yichun was confident that he could kill the middle-aged man with bewitching mirror shattering, but he did not want to reveal it yet. Chapter 789. After killing the skinny middle-aged man, Yichun stood in place and did not go to help anyone, because there was no one on his side who needed help. Jin Wanshuang was fighting Shi Xiaobao, and the latter still had the upper hand. The cold-faced youngster was fighting against the middle-aged scholar. Both of them were sword artists, and if Yichun went to help, it would only make the cold-faced youngster unhappy. As for Lin Yuxuan, it was better to forget about it. This person was extremely arrogant, so how could he accept the help of others? The twin brothers had strange and unfathomable characters, so it was better not to interfere. As for the yellow-robed woman, no matter how Yichun looked at it was her opponent who needed help. If he went, it would only be superfluous. Moreover, Murong Qingcheng had also gained the upper hand, suppressing the young woman. It seemed that the battle would be settled after a while. In the end, the battle between the old man and the raincoat old man was a bit confusing. The old man style was fast, precise, and accurate, while the raincoat old man style was the same as his attire, strange and inexplicable. Sometimes it was better to attack in a straight line, but he always chose an arc. Sometimes, when it was necessary to clash head-on, he would retreat with all his might, and when it was necessary to retreat, he would attack with all his might. In short, it could not be speculated with common sense. Retracting his gaze, Yichun turned around and looked at the small mountain of upper-grade spirit stones at the center of the palace. The reason this astonishing amount of upper-grade spirit stones could be preserved for so many years was directly related to the formation below. If Yichun's guess was correct, this formation should be called the Spirit Locking Formation, which could lock spirit chi within the formation and not let leak out. Apart from locking spirit chi, the Spirit Locking Formation also had a powerful defensive ability. Once the chi surging back and forth in the palace rushed over, it would immediately be deflected by the formation's power, unable to shake it in the slightest. However, the Spirit Locking Formation was, after all, not a defensive formation. After suffering countless attacks, it became unstable and flickered. Yichun didn't dare to break open the array and collect the upper-grade spirit stones. He was afraid that once the array was broken, the upper-grade spirit stones inside would be shattered by the chi energies coming from all directions. If he were to shatter more than 500 million upper-grade spirit stones, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. Therefore, even if he had nothing to do, he could only watch from the side without doing anything. 4 sky, absolute sword art, limitless death sword. The confrontation between the two peak sword artists attracted Yi Chen's attention. The middle-aged scholar and the cold-faced youngster both used their killing moves, preparing to decide the victor and the loser. The middle-aged scholar's killing move contained 4 elements: wood profound, metal profound, fire profound, and water profound. Of course, these 4 profounds weren't fused, but rather separated and complemented each other. For consecutive sword strikes cut off all of the cold-faced youngster's paths of retreat and advance, giving off an aura of extermination. Meanwhile, the cold-faced youngster's killing move fused the earth profound and metal profound, carrying the weight of earth and sharpness of metal. It didn't need many transformations. Once the sword pierced out, even gods and ghosts wouldn't be able to escape. It aimed at the middle-aged scholar's flaw. Amazing. Either one of them has the strength to compete with me. If I don't use bewitching mirror shattering, it'll be almost impossible for me to defeat them. Even if I use it, I only have a 70% chance of defeating them. Yi Chen's mind turned quickly, analyzing the two's strength and comparing it with his own. In the blink of an eye, the two's killing moves collided with each other, and then thousands of cold stars burst out. Even Yi Chen couldn't figure out what had happened in a split second, and could only speculate based on the trajectory of the thousands of cold stars. Puff! The cold stars faded, and a stream of blood sprayed 7 or 8 feet high. The middle-aged scholar's head was raised up, and on his neck there was a horrifying sword mark. His throat had been cut, and his spine was strangely broken, unable to support the weight of his head. In the confrontation of killing moves, the middle-aged scholar was the first to die. Yi Chen then looked at the cold-faced youngster. The cold-faced youngster's injury was very serious. For an ordinary person, this would be a fatal injury. His left and right chest were pierced, and his 2 thighs were also cut with deep sword marks. Blood spurted out crazily, and his whole body seemed to be bathed in blood. 1 dead, 1 seriously injured. This is a battle between swordsmen. Yi Chen sighed. Clang! After killing the middle-aged scholar, the cold-faced youngster's body went limp. His long sword fell to the ground, and he knelt on both knees, spurting out a huge mouthful of blood. His hair was drenched in sweat and blood. At this moment, not to mention a half-step king, even an astral-reaching expert could easily kill him. The injuries on his thighs and right chest couldn't be considered fatal. However, the injury on his left chest was extremely fatal. If not for the slightest deviation, his heart would have been pierced, and he would have died. It could be said that his survival was 70 to 80% luck. This middle-aged scholar was the most frightening sword artist he had ever encountered, and had the possibility of killing him. Die! Right at this moment, a huge lion claw suddenly attacked the cold-faced youngster. The huge lion claw shone with a golden luster, and its owner was naturally Shi Xiaobao in his true form. It turned out that Shi Xiaobao and Jin Wanshuang had both been blown back by the clash just now, and Shi Xiaobao had been blown back by the cold-faced youngster. Seeing that the cold-faced youngster had killed the middle-aged scholar and was also heavily injured, Shi Xiaobao casually swiped his claw, wanting to kill him. The cold-faced youngster didn't even have the strength to raise his eyes, let alone defend with his sword. If there were no mishaps, his death was already decided. Clang! However, a mishap occurred. A long sword blocked Shi Xiaobao's claw. It was Yi Chen. You're courting death. Shi Xiaobao's huge lion head spat out human words as he glowered at Yi Chen. Yi Chen faintly smiled. We're enemies. Since we're enemies, I can't let you have your way. The reply to Yi Chen was a furious roar. Shi Xiaobao's body twisted, and his other claw swiped at Yi Chen like lightning. Go back. Yi Chen held his sword with both hands. A black lightning ball condensed on the blade and instantly exploded, sending Shi Xiaobao flying. Dozens of golden hairs danced in the air. Dong! After returning to his true form, the lion claw was Shi Xiaobao's toughest part. Yi Chen's sword didn't injure him, but when he was sent flying into the air, a silver silhouette shot over and punched his chest, issuing a drum-like sound. After this punch, Jin Wanshuang didn't get greedy and immediately retreated to avoid Shi Xiaobao's counterattack. Sure enough, after receiving this powerful punch, Shi Xiaobao's mouth and nose leaked a large amount of blood. However, what he did first was not to temporarily dodge, but to fiercely counterattack. Under the pain, Shi Xiaobao's counterattack was even crazier than his all-out attack. Unfortunately, how could Jin Wanshuang give him such an opportunity? Failing his counterattack, Shi Xiaobao was sent flying backward. His foreclaws landed on the ground, and there was a small fist imprint on his chest. Blood flowed out of his 7 apertures, indicating that he had suffered a serious internal injury. If he wasn't a genius of the Golden Lion race with a noblest peak high-rank bloodline and an incomparably tyrannical, fleshly body, even if he didn't die from this punch, he would be heavily injured. However, his strength was similar to Jin Wanshuang's, and with enough time, he had the confidence to grind Jin Wanshuang to death. But now that he was injured, he was definitely not Jin Wanshuang's opponent. Turning his head to look at the others, Shi Xiaobao turned silent. Apart from the rain-robed old man, the others had either encountered an opponent that was hard to determine or had an opponent that was as unfathomable as the rain-robed old man. The situation was not as good as he had imagined. If this continued, they would be annihilated one by one. Retreat! Shi Xiaobao roared and shot toward the teleportation array. Swoosh! Swoosh! Just as Shi Xiaobao's voice faded, 2 people flashed over. One was a pale-faced young lady, and the other was a blood-soaked masked man. These 2 had encountered extremely powerful opponents. The young lady's opponent was Murong Qingsheng, who was extremely fast and possessed a mysterious dark martial art. The masked man's opponent was Daer Ba, a monster with an undying fleshly body. Therefore, they had long since thought of retreating. Time to retreat. Hee, your strength is not bad. This old man will not play with you anymore. The rain-robed old man shuttled through the rain, his figure flickering erratically as he shook off the weathered old man and flashed toward the teleportation array, leaving behind countless afterimages. The middle-aged lady saw that the situation was not right and abandoned the curly-bearded man. The pale-faced young man was rather unlucky. His path of retreat coincided with the bald fatties. The latter's movement technique was too powerful, and Daer Xiong did not manage to hit him. Instead, his axe chopped down on the pale-faced young man's body, splitting him into 2 from head to toe. Seeing that most of the enemies had fled, Jin Wanshuang and the rest did not stop them. As the saying goes, don't chase a cornered enemy. If you force the enemy into a desperate situation, you would inevitably face the enemy's final counterattack. Everyone's strength was equal, and one side's final counterattack would more or less increase the number of casualties. Let's go. The teleportation array had already been activated, flickering with radiance. Shi Xiaobao coldly said. The masked man said, "There's one more." He looked at the curly-bearded man. Shi Xiaobao shook his head. He won't be able to live. At the last moment, the yellow-robed lady became slightly serious. Her body turned into a stream of light and coiled around the curly-bearded man like a huge yellow snake. Clatter! The curly-bearded man's body emitted continuous popping sounds. As soon as the yellow-robed lady left, his body softened and collapsed on the ground like a pile of meat. In just a moment, the curly-bearded man's bones were completely shattered. The yellow-robed lady's strength shocked everyone. Buzz! The teleportation array flickered, and Shi Xiaobao and the rest disappeared from the palace. I owe you my life, the cold-faced youngster said to Yi Chun. He's also my enemy. Yi Chun sheathed his sword. Those are 2 different matters. This life of mine, I will return it to you. Saying so, the cold-faced youngster sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes to begin healing. Yi Chun faintly smiled and moved closer to the others. The silver luster on Jin Wanshuang's body receded as he sized up everyone. Seeing that the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man had died, he couldn't help but sigh. The 10 people he had invited were all experts, but facing an elite like them, casualties were unavoidable. Fortunately, the enemies had more casualties. 10 had come, but only 6 were left. 4 had died, which was double their numbers. Even if they won this battle, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Chapter 790. The dead cannot come back to life. Moreover, they did not have any deep feelings for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man. They were not even friends, so they naturally would not feel sad. Since they were already dead, the treasures still had to be divided. What was undeniable was that with the 2 dead, each of them would get a bigger share of the treasures. Everyone's emotions were complicated. Clearing his throat, Jin Wanshuang said, "Right now, there are 9 of us left. Lady Morong will get 20% of the treasures, and we will each get 10%. Now, let's break the formation and count the upper-grade spirit stones." As he spoke, Jin Wanshuang arrived before the spirit lock array. Silver light overflowed from his palm as Jin Wanshuang's palm slammed into the void. A ring of light yellow light blossomed in the void. It was the light of the spirit lock array. As Jin Wanshuang's palm slammed down, the array's light fluctuated, dimming and brightening at times. Jin Wanshuang had long since had experience in this aspect. His palm pressed against the array's light and swiped horizontally. Pop! The spirit lock array was broken, and the dense spirit chi within the array was released, spreading out in all directions. In an instant, the entire palace was filled with spirit chi, making it slightly moist. The twin brothers could not help but smile. The previous battle had made them extremely satisfied, and now there was so much wealth waiting for them. Life's happiness was nothing more than this. Just like the twin brothers, everyone revealed a knowing smile. The killing intent left over from the great battle also vanished like smoke in thin air. As for the middle-aged woman and the yellow-faced man's deaths, they had long since forgotten about them. At this moment, no one was thinking about them. All they were thinking about was how many high-grade spirit stones they could get. "Everyone, start counting." Jin Wanshuang nodded to everyone. With their powerful soul power, everyone's counting speed was extremely fast. In just a short while, everyone had finished. "I have 81 million here. I have 75 million here. 84 million. Apart from an indifferent young man who was still recovering from his injuries, the 8 of them added up to a total of 648 million, which was more than 100 million more than the 500 million. This was definitely a great harvest. Even if they did not gain anything from this, it was still a rewarding trip. Jin Wanshuang said with a smile, "A total of 648 million. 10% is 64 million and 800,000. Lady Morong will take 20%, so it will be 129,600,000. Now, everyone can take your share. Don't take more, but don't take less either. It's more than I imagined." Yi Qin's upper-grade spirit stones had already surpassed 30 million, reaching a total of 36 million. With the addition of 64 million and 800,000, he had over 100 million. Such a huge amount of wealth was something even the majority of 6th-grade sects couldn't compare to. If not for the upper-grade storage ring he had obtained in the Blackwater Alliance's Crystal Vault, a mid-grade storage ring wouldn't have been able to store so many upper-grade spirit stones. Morong Qingqing's harvest was the most. This was all thanks to her Dark Force field, which allowed her to obtain 2 portions of the wealth. After collecting their own upper-grade spirit stones, everyone's gazes fell on the 7 chests of energy crystals. The distribution of energy crystals was a bit complicated because there were too many types of energy crystals and everyone's needs were different. However, energy crystals were the same as spirit stones and could also be used for cultivation. For example, for those who cultivated fire Jinyuan, using fire energy crystals to cultivate would have a better effect than using spirit stones of the same grade. Moreover, it could increase the destructive power of the fire Jinyuan, as well as contain more fire attribute energy. First, let's count how many energy crystals we have. Jin Wanshuang frowned and said, Soon, the number of energy crystals was also counted. There were 70,000 upper-grade energy crystals in total, 10,000 per chest. Among them, there were 8,000 gold energy crystals, 10,000 wood energy crystals, 12,000 water energy crystals, 11,000 fire energy crystals, 13,000 earth energy crystals, 7,000 wind energy crystals, 5,000 thunder energy crystals, 2,000 light energy crystals, 2,000 dark energy crystals. There were energy crystals of all 9 major attributes, and the quantity varied according to their rarity. The rarest ones were naturally light and dark. Jin Wanshuang said, 70,000 energy crystals, divided equally among the 9 of us. Each of us will get 7,777 crystals. I cultivate metal element Jin Yuan, and I don't see anyone cultivating metal element Jin Yuan in the team. Thus, I will take 7,777 metal element crystals. I want 2,000 dark energy crystals. The rest doesn't matter. Murong Qingsheng also said. Yichen said, I don't care about any energy crystals. The Zhen Yuan he cultivated did not contain any attribute and was the purest Zhen Yuan. In this way, the distribution was much easier. Among the 9, there weren't many who cultivated attributed Zhen Yuan. Moreover, they didn't overlap, so there was no conflict between them. Yichen took a bit of each attributed energy crystal. Even if he didn't cultivate, he could still use these crystals as a form of wealth. After distributing the energy crystals, there was nothing left in the palace. All right, the distribution is done. Everyone can rest here for a while and heal your injuries. Jin Wanshuang said. Among the 9, the one with the heaviest injuries was the cold-faced youngster, followed by Lin Yushuan. Jin Wanshuang and Shi Xiaobao had also suffered some light injuries. The remaining 6 were not injured, but they needed to replenish their Zhen Yuan. At this moment, time was not pressing, so no one wasted precious pills. Instead, they sat cross-legged to recover their Zhen Yuan. Half a day later, apart from the cold-faced youngster, everyone had recovered to their peak state. A day later, the cold-faced young man also stopped healing. His injuries weren't something that could be healed in a short period of time. However, with the help of precious medicinal pills, he was almost fully recovered. He didn't want to waste everyone's time, so he stopped healing. Let's go. Jin Wanshuang waved his hand and walked out of the palace. There were 2 paths outside the palace, one to the left and the other to the right. Everyone chose the path on the right. Following the path, they gradually arrived at the core of the ruins. The surroundings were filled with layers of buildings, and the atmosphere was gloomy. Murong Qingcheng suddenly whispered into Yi Chen's ear, I saw a blurry shadow just now. It wasn't an illusion. Oh! Yi Chen was moved, even ignoring the hot breath that Murong Qingcheng blew into his ear. While walking, Yi Chen pondered for a while, then said, I don't know what happened here, but I don't think it was anything good. The fall of the True Water Palace is most likely related to this, and the ruins have become an ominous place. Should we tell them? Murong Qingcheng asked. Yi Chen shook his head and said, even if we tell them, they will not leave. After all, exploring ruins is a dangerous thing. How could they be scared by a blurry shadow? Telling them now will only make them feel uneasy. Yi Chen used his soul eyes, so he could naturally see the blurry shadow as well. However, under normal circumstances, he could not sense where the shadow was. Murong Qingsheng was different. She cultivated demon power, and she had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, so she was very sensitive to dark things. Among the group, only Murong Qingsheng could sense the shadow watching them. Yeah, that makes sense. Murong Qingsheng nodded. All right, no matter if the shadow is a human or a ghost, it will be exposed one day. At that time, we will act according to the situation. Yi Chen was not too afraid of this kind of evil being. His destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent were not to be trifled with, and were specialized in dealing with formless evil beings. The road was full of twists and turns, and before long, They had passed through a series of buildings and arrived in front of a magnificent, cold, and dignified tower. The base of this tower was more than 10 times the size of an ordinary manor. It was 1,000 meters tall and had a total of 33 floors. It was like a giant's tower. This tower was also the tallest building in the ruins. On the door of the tower's first floor, 3 words were carved: Mysterious Een Tower. Mysterious Een Tower. Could this ruin be the residence of the true Water Palace's life and death king? Jin Wanxuan guessed. At its peak, True Water Palace had 1 titled monarch and 13 life and death kings. Its reputation was like a rainbow, like the sun in the midday sky. As a life and death king, his position was naturally the most respected. Controlling a faction was nothing out of the ordinary. The mysterious Een King is already dead. There must be all of his wealth in this tower. The brother Daer Xiong laughed heartily. The old man said, "Whether it's mysterious Een King or not, we can't be sure. However, the Een Chi in this tower is too dense. It's almost the densest place in this ruin. It's very ominous. If you're afraid, you can leave. I have to enter this tower no matter what." Daer Ba was the same as his brother, not knowing what fear was. This old man has lived for a long time. How could I be afraid of death? I just don't want to die in vain. The old man didn't lower himself to Daer Ba's level. Lin Yuxuan said at this moment, "The tower contains great treasures. This is 80 to 90% certain. I'll definitely go in and take a look. Otherwise, this trip would be a waste." Lin Yuxuan was also a person with great fortune. The reason why he could have the strength he had today was because he had many fortunes and obtained many treasures. Therefore, in his eyes, the mysterious Een Tower was a land of treasures. As for the danger, that was normal. Without danger, there was no value in exploring this place. Everyone, as the nominal leader of this team, Jin Wanxuan spoke, "The mysterious Een Tower is basically the most valuable place in this ruin, and the reason we came here is also for the treasures. I agree to enter this tower. If there is anyone who doesn't agree, you can wait outside, or you can explore other places on your own." Jin Wanxuan had made his stance clear. Everyone knew that they had to enter. If they stayed outside, what if they ran into other people? As for exploring other places, it would be even more dangerous if they went alone. After all, everyone could see that this place was not a peaceful place. Therefore, no matter how dangerous the tower was, entering was an inevitable choice. As for other situations, they could think about it later. Chapter 791. The door of the tower was filled with evil chi, as if it was the door to hell. Vaguely, there was an extremely cold and ominous chi. Even if Sea of Souls realm warriors stood in front of the tower, they would not be able to help but shiver, not to mention going in. But it did not include the 9 of them. They were not only half-step king warriors, but also almost invincible among them. Unless it was a life and death realm warrior, it would not be easy for anyone to kill them, and they would have to pay for it. Although they did not like this ominous chi, they were not afraid of it. The road to life and death realm was already rough and full of danger. How could a mere ominous chi scare them? Crack! Pushing open the door, the 9 walked in. After the 9 entered, the door closed automatically, letting out a sound that seemed to come from the underworld. Swoosh! When the 9 of them first entered, the first floor was as dark as ink, so dark that they couldn't even see their fingers in front of them. However, very quickly, the sound of burning flames could be heard. With the 9 of them as the starting point, 2 rows of faint green flames lit up, sticking to the walls and extending into the distance. Not long after, the first layer was shrouded in a faint green light. It was neither bright nor dim, only icy cold. Yichin casually glanced at the flames. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he said word by word, "These flames are lit from the white skulls." What? Hearing him, everyone looked toward the nearest flames. On the wall, a rusty chain was holding a white skull. There was a hole on top of the skull, which was the Biwi meridian. A beam of flame was released from inside, burning steadily. Because the flame was not that bright, and the light was directed outward, the surface of the wall was still pitch black, which was hard to see through with naked eyes. Therefore, the white skull was naturally not that eye-catching. At this moment, with Yi Qin's reminder, everyone finally noticed this detail, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. White skulls lighting up. This is an extremely evil method. The elder frowned as he looked around from time to time. Lin Yuxuan said, "Could it be that the true Water Palace is an evil sect? That's why it has fallen silently after provoking the wrath of the heavens?" There's no way to prove it, but judging from the current situation, it's quite possible. Perhaps the true Water Palace tried to use some forbidden technique and triggered a terrible backfire. Jin Wanshuang pondered. All right, who cares about the skeletons lighting up the lantern? Evil sects? We're not here to judge the quality of the true Water Palace. We're here for treasures. The twins were getting impatient. That's true. Let's continue. Jin Wanshuang took a step forward. About an hour after the 9 of them entered the mysterious Yin Tower, a group of acquaintances arrived outside the tower. This group of acquaintances was Shi Xiaobao and the others. After they were teleported out of the palace, they rested for 2 days before heading to the mysterious Yin Tower, the tallest building in this ruin. They were 1 step slower than Yi Chun and the others. Why is this mysterious Yin Tower filled with Yin Qi? The middle-aged woman said hesitantly. Don't follow us if you're scared. Shi Xiaobao led the group and pushed open the door of the tower without hesitation and walked in. The middle-aged woman bit her teeth and followed them. The first 18 floors of the tower were empty. Yi Chun and the others went straight to the 19th floor, which was much more sinister than the 18 floors below. Waves of cold wind blew over from nowhere, making everyone's hair stand on end. Everyone, be careful. Jin Wanshuang's voice came from the front. Yeah, the Yin Qi here is even more intense, and there are strange vibrations coming from time to time. Don't be careless. The elder was the most cautious one in the team, but it was not because he was afraid of death. People who were afraid of death were not necessarily cautious, and those who were cautious mostly did not want to die in vain. The twin brother Daer Xiong said, "It is not that I am arrogant and want to mess with you guys, but I think we do not need to worry about anything at all. We are almost invincible below the life and death realm. Only life and death realm warriors will be able to kill us. Of course, if we run into them, it would be our bad luck. No matter how cautious we are, it would be pointless. Besides them, I cannot think of anyone who could kill this many of us at once." The elder felt that these 2 little bastards were thinking too highly of him, so he could not help but say, "Then what about the top half-step king warriors? If they want to kill you, it should not be hard, right?" Daer Xiong froze, unable to say anything for a while. Although they were all considered to be invincible below life and death realm in their own territories, there was still a gap between them and the top half-step king warriors, because the top half-step king warriors were invincible below life and death realm. If a top half-step king warrior wanted to kill any one of them, it would not be too hard. Daer Xiong explained, "Although the top half-step king warriors could kill me, they would not be able to take on all of us at the same time." "Then, do you think there would only be one enemy?" The elder sneered. Seeing the 2 start bickering, Yi Chun faintly smiled. The old man's worry was not without reason. Although they were elites of Four Corner Island, if they encountered a strongest half-step king, they would not be able to win. Apart from a strongest half-step king, there were too many things that could kill them. For example, some mysterious traps, some strange poisons, and some destructive energies could all kill them. The reason why the twin brothers were so fearless was probably because they thought that with their powerful bodies, they would not have to worry about ambushes. All right, you guys are really annoying. Lin Yuxuan could not stand this kind of argument anymore, so he said with a low voice, "On the 19th floor, there was no danger at all. On the 20th floor, on the 27th floor, damn, there is nothing here. Don't tell me there is nothing up there as well." After another 7 floors, everyone still did not encounter anything. There was neither treasure nor danger, so it was very boring. At this moment, everyone would rather have a little bit of danger. At least, they would not have nothing to do. Before they knew it, they had already reached the 32nd floor, which was only 1 wall away from the highest floor. And on the 32nd floor, something finally appeared. On top of a square stone platform, there were 4 items: a great sword, a demonic staff, a purple gold bowl, and a jade ruler. Besides that, there was also an ink painting right next to the 4 items. It was half open and seemed to be drawing a human figure. Great item. Everyone's eyes brightened. The mysterious Ink Tower had completely disappointed them. They thought that this place might not have mountains of treasures, but at least there would be some. However, they didn't see a single treasure on the way. From the first floor to the 31st floor, it was completely empty, and the place was full of Inchi. Right then, seeing the 4 great items on the stone platform, everyone's mind started to work, and the way they looked at each other became more unfriendly. There were only 4 great items, and being able to be on the 32nd floor meant that they were not normal items. But there were 9 people here, so no matter how they divided them, it would not be fair. In that case, there was only one way to solve this problem. Yi-chan sensed the change in the atmosphere, so he said, "We do not know the rank of the great items yet. There is no need to fight to the death." Chapter 792. The 4 items on the stone platform had all hidden their power. From the outside, it was impossible to tell what rank they were. However, since they were placed on the 32nd floor of the tower, they should not be lower than demi-extreme rank items. With Yi-chan's guess, they might even be pseudo-extreme rank items. Of course, before confirming the rank, it would be a bit impatient to make such a big fuss about it. He is right. Jin Wanshuang took a deep breath, his eyes calming down. Then how do we confirm the rank of the items? I do not trust other people to do it. Even if we want to confirm it, I will have to do it myself. Lin Yushuan said, "Yeah, who knows if the first one to confirm it would take it for himself or not. Although he would not dare to take all of them, but if he could take 1 or 2 and leave the tower while everyone else is fighting for the rest of the items, no one would be able to do anything to him." Dare Xiong's thoughts were not as simple as they looked. Very simple. We will attack the items from afar, and the items will release their own power to block out the attack. The items had their own power as well, but it was passive and could not attack on its own. However, if it was attacked, it would still activate its own power to block out the attack. Yi-chan said lightly, "All right, let's do that." Yi-chan's suggestion was approved by everyone. "Let me do it." Jin Wanshuang stood out. His right fist tightened as he threw out a punch. Pooh! A light, exploding sound appeared in the air as that unstoppable fist power shattered the square stone platform. The aggressive chi attack landed on the walls of the tower and bounced back, blowing the 4 items and the painting into the air of the 32nd floor. Who? The great sword, the evil falling stick, the purple gold bowl, and the jade ruler all released a powerful aura, shining with different colors. Among them, the sword was shining with a red light, the evil falling stick was gold, the purple gold bowl was purple gold, and the jade ruler was pure white. The 4 colors interweaved together, and the air of the entire tower's 32nd floor became as sticky as water. The strange thing was that the paper of the ink wash painting was made of some unknown material. Under the impact of the precious weapon's power and the violent chi, it was not damaged at all. It also did not emit any light. It was just that the ink wash painting, on the other hand, was completely opened up by the external force. It was a picture of climbing high and looking far away. Pseudo-extreme great artifacts, all 4 of them. Everyone was breathing heavily. Boom! Almost at the same moment, when everyone confirmed the grade of the artifacts, an intense cyan energy whirlwind appeared. Lin Yushuan's eyes turned red as his Zhen Yuan burst out, producing a powerful destructive power. It instantly shattered the space solidification created by the power of the 4 pseudo-extreme great artifacts, then shot out like a sharp arrow with an unstoppable momentum. "How dare you steal our treasures?" The twin brothers roared as their muscles tightened. Their skin shone with a solid light as they bent their knees and bounced out like 2 gorillas. Their speed was not much slower than Lin Yushuan's. At the same time, they took out their own weapons, ready to fight at the critical moment. The 3 reacted fast, but the others were not slow either. Jin Wanshuang's body shone with a silver light as he turned into a metal man, following closely behind. His body and his fists were his weapons, and his eyes were just like metal, cold and emotionless. The elder's movement art was fast and agile. As his black robe spread out, he looked like a huge bat. At this moment, he would not let go of the treasure. Whoever dared to stop him would not be able to blame him for being merciless. Meanwhile, the girl in yellow that Yi-chan could not see through frowned slightly. She actually crossed her arms in front of her chest and took a step back. She did not plan to fight for the artifact. Just like the girl in yellow, the cold-looking teenager did not go up to fight for the artifact either. He seemed to think that he did not have much hope since he had not fully recovered yet. Of course, this was just what the others thought. In fact, deep down in his heart, he was more afraid of Yi-chan. The weapon he wanted was that great sword with a red light. However, Yi-chan was also a sword artist. When the two met, there would definitely be a battle. Right now, he could not compete with Yi-chan. Yi-chan, I'm not going. You should go now. Morong Qingchun frowned and shook her head. Yi-chan studied the girl in yellow, then looked at Morong Qingchun. He seemed to have understood something, so he said, all right. A pair of sword wings appeared on his back. Yi-chan's body flashed like a beam of sword light flashed through the sky, catching up to the 5 people in front of him. Lin Yuxuan was the first one to fight for the artifact after all. He reached out his hand, wanting to grab the only long weapon among the 4 artifacts. Let go. The twin brothers also had their eyes on the evil weapon. The older brother, Daer Xiong, waved his huge axe and hacked towards Lin Yuxuan. Damn it! Lin Yuxuan had no choice but to raise his bronze halberd to block the attack. His whole body was blown away. Brother, I will help you. You go get it. Daer Xiong said to Daer Ba. All right. Daer Ba growled and jumped towards the evil weapon. Forgive me. This evil weapon is also my first choice. Jin Wan Shuang, who had turned into a silver metal man, threw a punch at Daer Ba. If you want to pass this, ask me. Daer Xiong blocked in front of him and raised his axe, blocking the fist power. I only want that purple gold bowl. The elder smiled slightly and set his eyes on the purple gold bowl above the evil weapon. With his movement art, he would be able to get it within a second. In your dreams, although Lin Yuxuan wanted the evil weapon more, it did not mean that he could ignore the other great artifacts. He stabbed out dozens of times with his bronze halberd, and a green dragon roared. Dang! The weathered old man and Lin Yuxuan clashed head-on. The shockwave rippled out, forcing everyone to take a step back. The 4 artifacts and the standing tall, gazing painting also flew up into the air, messing up their order. Shoo! At this moment, a streak of sword light flashed past, heading for the tower view painting and the treasured sword that was glowing red. Brat, stop! Derbo was almost about to get the staff, but who would have thought that after the shockwave, the staff would be blown away again? Seeing that Yi-chan was about to get the great sword and the painting, he grinned and waved his 2 blades, throwing out 2 beams of blade light. Shadow explosion. His body exploded in the air as Yi-chan turned into countless shadows and spread out. The blade light flashed, killing a huge amount of shadows. Meanwhile, Yi-chan's real body was only a couple of steps away from the painting. Wind chasing 18 strikes. Daer Ba's attack missed, and the elder's attack followed up. The black short stick in his hand created countless shadows, attacking towards Yi-chan. Ting! 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 Yi-chan and the elder exchanged dozens of attacks, but neither of them could do anything to the other. All of a sudden, the 32nd floor of the tower turned into a mess. The 6 people who were fighting for the great weapons did not want the other to get it, so they attacked each other. Sometimes, even though they were like fire and water, they would still join hands to attack each other. Human nature is evil. Leaning against the wall of the tower, the lady in yellow sneered. Morong Qingchun said, You don't want to fight for the great weapons because they have the evil destroying chi, which is not compatible with your beast power, right? I train the beast power, and you don't train Jin Yuan. If I am not wrong, you should have the perfect demi-demon bloodline of the demi-demon race. You train the famous demi-demon power, which makes you more sensitive to the evil destroying chi. Same to you. Murong Qingsheng was not surprised that she knew her identity. She did not plan to hide anything anyway. The demi-demon race comes from the demons, and they like the dark side. Why are you with him? His sword chi is righteous and unbreakable, which is not compatible with your demon power. The lady in yellow blinked her eyes and asked curiously, "Then tell me, where did the demi-demon race come from?" Murong Qingsheng asked back. The lady in yellow could not help but laugh. The human devil clan was naturally the result of intermarriage between a member of the devil race and a member of the human race. Since members of the devil race could marry with members of the human race, it was not strange for a member of the perfect devil bloodline to marry with a human. While the two were talking, the cold-looking youngster was sitting in the corner of the 32nd floor, calmly healing his wounds. This kind of unmoved state of mind was extremely rare. If it were someone else, they would have already been tempted by the 4 pseudo-extreme grade artifacts, even if they knew they could not get them. He is very powerful. When he came, no one expected it. The yellow-robed woman scanned the crowd, and soon, Yi Chun caught her attention. In terms of strength, Yi Chun was indeed not weaker than anyone else. It should be known that among everyone present, Yi Chun had the lowest cultivation base, only at peak late C of Soul Realm. His power has not been used yet. Murong Qingsheng said lightly. "Oh." The lady in yellow glanced at Murong Qingsh. "Brother Yi, your power is not bad, but you're still a bit weaker than me." The 4 weapons overlapped with each other, bringing the battle to its climax. Among them, Jin Wanshuang and Yi Chun, who were the closest to each other, started to battle. Jin Wanshuang was one of the most powerful warriors in the team. Besides the lady in yellow, who was slightly more powerful than everyone else, no one else seemed to be more powerful than him. His whole body shone with a bright silver light as he attacked toward Yi Chun like a silver metal man. Let's take out the weakest one first." Lin Yuxuan rolled his eyes and also set his target on Yi Chun. No matter if it was for business or personal reasons, he felt that he should take out Yi Chun first. In terms of business, Yi Chun's cultivation was the weakest. Although his power was not weak, his protective Zhenyuan was still a lot weaker, which would not give him an advantage. In terms of personal reasons, the relationship between Yi Chun and Murong Qingsheng annoyed him a bit. It was the jealousy that men were born with. Therefore, making sure that Yi Chun could not get any great items would make him feel better. Raising his bronze battle halberd, Lin Yuxuan also attacked toward Yi Chun. Then his 2 brothers will also join in the fun. The twin brothers seemed to be careless, but they were actually very shrewd. 6 people were fighting for the weapons, and after 1 person was taken out, there were only 5 left, which made the difficulty much lower. The elder did not dare to snatch the weapons at this moment, fearing that he would anger the crowd and turn against him. With his power alone, he would definitely be heavily wounded. Seeing that the others were going to attack Yi Chun, he was naturally happy to do so. The black short staff shot out a staff shadow, attacking toward Yi Chun. All of a sudden, the 5 attacked Yi Chun together. Shameless. Murong Qingsheng was enraged. "It seems like I have to use that move." Yi Chun was helpless. He did not expect that this move would be forced out by his own people. Chapter 793. Fighting 1 against 5. None of the moves that Yi Chun had used before would be useful. Only the bewitching mirror shattering created from the space profound would be useful. The bewitching mirror shattering could condense the air into a mirror, and its attacking range could be big or small. It was a move that had no weaknesses. Although the bewitching mirror shattering was only 70 to 80% complete, it should be enough to deal with 5 experts at the same level as him. Holding the Thunder Disaster Sword with both of his hands, Yi Chun instantly entered a calm and tranquil state. His eyes looked far away, as if the entire void was under his control. Meanwhile, the Thunder Disaster Sword in his hand suddenly twisted and disappeared from everyone's sight. Perhaps it was just a moment, or maybe it was a long time, but Yi Chun waved out that seemingly slow but actually fast sword, causing the entire void to shake. Not good. The 5 of them screamed in their hearts at the same time. The space profound was too profound, and it had a mysterious connection with the time profound. Before Yi Chun waved out that sword, they already felt that time had slowed down a lot. It was so much so that their attacks were slowly approaching Yi Chun. When Yi Chun waved out that sword, time seemed to have frozen in their perception. Other than their thoughts, even their own movements had slowed down. Their hands and feet were tied, and their hearts were filled with panic. Their battle intent had dropped to a freezing point. Different from the five, the yellow-robed woman, Morong Qingsheng, and the cold-looking young man who had opened his eyes could clearly see that Yi Chen's sword had reached an extreme speed. It was obviously the five of them who had attacked first, but it was Yi Chun who had attacked first. Different positions, different sensations. This was the change brought about by the space profound. Without a sound, the void where the five of them were started to twist without any pattern. The five of them seemed to be in the same mirror, and their expressions kept changing. This mirror could shatter at any moment, and the five of them would naturally not be able to escape. Should I kill them? Yi Chun was a bit hesitant. Suddenly, pung. In the mirror, Jin Wanchuang's position exploded, and illusory glass shards shot out in all directions. Jin Wanchuang, who was covered in silver light, spurted out a mouthful of blood and flew out with a pale face. Soon after, the weathered old man and the twin brothers broke free at the same time. Their faces were pale and filled with terror. The last one was Lin Yuxuan. Whether it was Zhen Yuan, cultivation base, physical strength, or experience, he could not compare to the other four. The only reason he could come out was because the frozen mirror had a flaw. Even so, his injuries were extremely severe. Blood flowed out from all 7 of his orifices, and his body had been cut dozens of times by the illusory glass, dyeing his clothes red. Attacking 5 people at once is a bit of a stretch. Yi Chun was not surprised. Bewitching mirror shattering could kill any one of them, but attacking all 5 at once was a bit difficult. After all, these 5 were not ordinary people, but 5 experts on the same level as him. If it wasn't for the bewitching mirror shattering containing the profound of space being too strange and frightening, how could it have almost killed them? How is this possible? Is space profound? How did it reach such a horrifying level? Jin Wanchuang still had lingering fear as he stared at Yi Chun blankly. Not only is the space profound this powerful, but this sword art created based on it is also too frightening. No matter how you look at it, there is no weakness at all. How could this be created by a young man? Compared to Jin Wanchuang, the elder was even more shocked by Yi Chen's creativity. Creating profound sense martial arts was a talent that was just as important as learning profound sense. The same space, profound, and the same realm might not have the same power, which was the importance of creativity. Although power was not everything, and some profound sense martial arts did not focus on power. No matter what, Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering had shocked the elder. The twin brothers, who had always been fearless, were also shocked. Derba said, "He actually wounded us too. Is he a strongest half-step king warrior? Even if he is not, he is almost there. It is a bit different." Derek Xiong had thought more than Derba. Just based on this attack alone, even a strongest half-step king warrior would have to avoid it. But in other aspects, Yi Chun was a lot weaker than them. Why? Lin Yuxuan was confused. He could not understand how Yi Chun, who was only a couple of years younger than him, could comprehend the space profound and create such a powerful sword art. With just one sword attack, he had made them lose the confidence to fight him. Condensing the air into a mirror. Good move. The lady in yellow sighed. The cold-looking young man hid away the shock on his face as he once again entered his healing mode. But this time it took him a long time to calm down. The space profound is 3 times more powerful than the normal profound, but it requires 9 times more Jin Yuan to use. It seems like I have to become a half-step king warrior as soon as possible. Only then will I have enough Jin Yuan to use. Otherwise, if I run into a powerful enemy, I will not be able to use it that many times. Letting out a breath, Yi Chen's body flashed, flying toward the painting and the great sword that was shining with red light. He was determined to get these 2 things. Seeing this, the 5 gritted their teeth. Although they could not compete with Yi Chun, if Yi Chun wanted to take all the treasures, they would have to try. After all, these were pseudo-extreme rank weapons. If they missed it this time, they would not know when they would get to see them again. The five stared at Yi Chun with a complicated expression. Shoo! The painting was taken over by Yi Chun and thrown into his storage ring. Then, Yi Chun grabbed the great sword that was shining with red light in his hand. Holding it in his hand, he saw two righteous and ancient characters carved on the sword's body, evil vanquishing. Good sword. Yi Chun could sense that the sword chi of the evil vanquishing sword was very righteous, which was very compatible with his sword art. There was no rejection at all. With the two treasures in his hand, Yi Chun started to study the other treasures. The evil vanquishing stick was more than 2 meters long, shining with a golden halo. It gave people a peaceful feeling, but also contained a horrifying evil vanquishing power. It was as if holding it in one's hand, one would not need to be afraid of any evil beings. Not far away from the stick was a purple gold bowl that was the size of a bowl. It looked like it was made from purple gold, but Yi Chun knew clearly that normal purple gold would not be able to make pseudo-extreme rank weapons. The last treasure was the jade ruler, which was pure white in color and 2.5 feet long. An auspicious beast was drawn on its surface, stepping on clouds and looking peaceful. Seeing Yi Chun studying the other great weapons, Jin Wanchuang and the other four started to get nervous. They did not want to fight with Yi Chun, but they would not give up on the great weapons either. Therefore, they were very concerned about Yi Chun's choice. Would he give up on the great weapons? Or would he take all of them? Don't worry, I'm not as greedy as you think. Yi Chun did not go for the last 3 great weapons. First, he had already gotten the painting and the evil vanquishing sword. Second, these 5 were not easy to mess with. If he pushed them too hard, they might fight to the death with him. He could not guarantee that he would not be able to kill all 5 of them at the same time. Third, even if he had the power, he would not be able to guarantee that he would not die. Third, even if he had the power, he would still give it to them. For him, those 3 great weapons would have to be traded anyway. It would be too much of a waste to keep them. Holding the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chun flew to Murong Qingchen. Huff! Jin Wanchuang and the other 4 let out a breath at the same time. Their tense nerves finally relaxed as they looked at Yi Chun with a bit of gratitude. If it were them, they would most likely take them all in one go. After all, pseudo-extreme rank great weapons were extremely precious. Even if they did not need them themselves, they could leave them to the auction house and sell them. Or they could go to some high-class market and trade for what they wanted. Brother Yi, Jin Wanchuang, apologized to you. Also, many thanks. Jin Wanchuang held his fists together and said, Me too. The elder smiled bitterly. Yi Chun nodded slightly and did not say anything. In this world, the most important thing was still power. As for what these people were thinking, it did not matter. Getting rid of Yi Chun, this powerful enemy, the 5 started a new round of competition. Eventually, it was Jin Wanchuang who was a bit more skillful and got the evil subduing stick. Then, the elder also got the purple gold bowl and left the battlefield. Lin Yuxuan was alone. So how could he be an opponent for the twin brothers? The jade ruler was taken away by them, leaving him with nothing. Lin Yuxuan was expressionless as he did not look at the others. Instead, he looked at the stairs from the 32nd floor to the 33rd floor. There might be more treasures up there. There was no soul mark left inside the evil shattering sword, so Yi Chun easily left his own mark on it. He then poured in his Zhan Yuan and gradually familiarized himself with some of the sword's functions. Shoo! The evil shattering sword extended out a meter-long sword light, making a swishing sound. Murong Qingchen squinted her eyes and took 2 steps back uncontrollably. The evil shattering sword light made her a bit uncomfortable. This sword's evil shattering power is too powerful. I'm afraid it is the best of the 4 great weapons. No wonder you feel uncomfortable. Yi Chun put the sword back into its sheath and kept away the sword light. Swords were originally the most aggressive, evil subduing stick for subduing demons and devils, purple gold bowl for suppressing and collecting, and the jade ruler for defense. Its offensive power was not as powerful as the other 2. Yeah, I wonder who left it here. Murong Qingchen said. Yi Chun looked at the 33rd floor and said, I hope it is not what I think it is. Not only did the evil shattering sword not have a soul mark, even the stick, purple gold bowl, and the jade ruler did not have any. With these three treasures, Jin Wan Shuang, the elder, and the twin brother Daoxian's power had increased drastically again. Even if they ran into a top half-step king warrior, they would be able to fight for a bit. Since you all have gotten your weapons, it is time to go to the 33rd floor. Right then, the lady in yellow said, "There are already 4 pseudo-extreme rank weapons on the 32nd floor. We have to go to the 33rd floor for sure." The twin brothers were not satisfied yet. Although the jade ruler was good, it did not fit their taste. If they could get 1 or 2 more powerful pseudo-extreme rank weapons, it would be even better. Let's go. Jin Wan Shuang held the stick with both of his hands, his aura getting even more powerful. Letting out a breath, the cold-looking teenager stood up. His wounds had already recovered to 80%, and he would not just stand by and watch anymore. Chapter 794. Following the stairs, the 9 of them walked up to the 33rd floor. Lin Yuxuan was walking at the front. Under the attack of Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering, he had been wounded the most. But, different from the cold-looking young man, his wound was not one that went through his body. Therefore, after swallowing a precious pellet that he had prepared himself, he had almost recovered. As a half-step king warrior, some of the pellets that could heal wounds in a short period of time were still available to him. But it was also because of this that the top-ranked soul stones and treasures were even more important to him, since the consumption was way too high. Yi Chun had his evil shattering sword on his waist as he followed at the back with Murong Qingchun. The 33rd floor? I'm afraid it will not be that easy. Yi Chun had a feeling that the 4 pseudo-extreme rank evil shattering items and the painting were not just randomly placed on the 32nd floor. They must have some other purpose. The tower was full of evil qi, and up until now, no one had run into any danger. But this unknown 33rd floor might be full of danger. Yi Chun had given up on the other 3 evil shattering items because of this reason. After all, he could not control all 4 of them by himself. Even if he could, he would not be able to use their full power. And for Murong Qingsheng and the lady in yellow, one had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, and the other was an unknown beast. Naturally, they would not be able to touch the evil shattering items. At the end of the stairs, everyone stopped. In front of them was a stone door. The surface of the stone door was engraved with complicated lines. These lines were of different colors, and there were a total of 5 colors: gold, cyan, green, red, and yellow. The 5 colored lines intertwined with each other and finally converged at the center of the stone door. There was a groove there, and there was a faint 5-colored light flickering, connecting the 5 colored lines. This is a 5 elemental spell. It needs 5 elemental energies to open. Jin Wanshuang had done some research on spells, so he said, "There are 9 of us here, and only 3 of us have trained 5 elemental Zhen Yuan. We cannot gather all 5 elemental energies." The elder frowned. Jin Wanshuang had trained metal element Zhen Yuan. Lin Yuxuan had wood element Jin Yuan, and the lady in yellow had water element Jin Yuan. The remaining fire and earth element Jin Yuan would not be enough. Yi Chun said, "You should be able to use something else to replace it, right? Like energy crystals?" Jin Wanshuang nodded. Indeed, not all elemental Jin Yuan is needed. Elemental energy crystals will do as well. With that, Jin Wanshuang took a step forward and said, "I'll pour in metal Jin Yuan first and see how much is needed." Placing his right hand inside the groove, Jin Wanshuang circulated his Zhen Yuan and slowly poured it in. As Jin Wanshuang poured in his metal attribute Jin Yuan, the golden lines on the stone door suddenly lit up and slowly extended. After a while, Jin Wanshuang said, "This won't do. This 5 elemental formation requires too much energy. Even if I use up all of my Jin Yuan, it won't be enough." Everyone realized that the golden lines on the stone door had only lit up by less than a tenth. It looked like it was still lacking 90%. Looks like I'll have to use energy crystals. The 5 elements formation required too much energy. Even if there were 5 people here who cultivated true essence of the 5 elements, it would not be enough. In other words, if the 9 of them had not obtained a large number of energy crystals, it would have been impossible for them to enter the 33rd floor. The others would not have been able to do it either. How about this? Everyone gather 900 metal energy crystals and 1,000 wood, water, fire, and earth energy crystals respectively. The excess will be returned to everyone, and if it's not enough, everyone will make up for it. Energy crystals were extremely precious. 1 upper-grade energy crystal was equivalent to 1,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Asking 1 or 2 people to provide it was obviously unfair. After gathering all the energy crystals, Jin Wanshuang threw them in. One could see that the groove at the center of the stone door could actively absorb the 5 elemental energy from the energy crystals. Meanwhile, the 5 colored lines on the stone door gradually lit up. With the groove as the center, they spread out in all directions, slow and steady. Not enough. Gather another 100 energy crystals for each element. Jin Wanshuang turned around and said. There was still a short section of the 5 colored lines on the stone door that had yet to light up. Here, everyone gathered another 500 energy crystals, 100 for each element. Receiving the crystals, Jin Wanshuang threw them all in. Buzz! The 5 colored lines on the stone door all lit up, and the entire stone door shone with a 5-colored radiance. The radiance interweaved together, forming a complex 5 elements formation in the air. Rumble! The stone door opened with a sound. This 5 elements formation is indeed a glutton. It took 5,400 energy crystals. Derba made a face. 5,400 energy crystals would be equivalent to 5,400,000 top-rank spirit stones. Normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. According to the energy that the 5 elements formation had devoured, Yi Chun thought of something else. With the protection of this 5 elements formation, not to mention half-step king warriors, even normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. As for whether or not they would be able to tear open the surreal space and go in directly, he did not know. Who? The stone door opened completely, and a wave of powerful evil wind blew out. Although the 9 of them had activated their protective Zhenyuan, they were still blown back a couple of steps by this evil wind. The blood in their bodies seemed to have been frozen, and the coldness was so intense that it even threatened their souls. What the 9 of them did not know was that the second they opened the stone door, a 5-colored light beam shot out from the top of the tower. All of a sudden, it broke through the 300,000 meters deep ocean and arrived above the ocean. It then kept going up, tearing apart the surprising sky and the extreme void sky. No one knew where it would end up at. Within a radius of tens of thousands of miles, everyone could see this 5-colored beam of light that connected the bottom of the sea and the sky. Most of the people on Four Corner Island that were tens of thousands of miles away could also sense the fluctuations here. However, because they were too far away, they had no way of knowing where the fluctuations were coming from. 5 elements energy. Far away from the Four Corner Island, a black chi appeared, and the demi-demon king of the demi-demon race appeared. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed the vibration of the 5 elements energy coming from far away. This is the power vibration after the seal was broken. There must be some kind of great treasure appearing. The elder in black hesitated for a second, but he soon made up his mind to give up on looking for the perfect beauty demon bloodline for now. This kind of fortune could only be found by luck, so he would get the treasure first before looking for the bloodline. Pop! The black chi disappeared, and the elder in black disappeared from where he was standing. The 9 of them still did not know that their opening of the 5-element spell had already attracted the attention of a demi-demon king. Right now, they had already entered the 33rd floor. The moment everyone entered the 33rd level, all the always-on lamps lit up. At the same time, everyone's gazes fell on the 5 coffins in the center of the 33rd level. Of these 5 coffins, the one in the middle was the largest, and there were 4 smaller coffins surrounding it at its 4 corners. It was unknown what kind of wood the coffins were made of, but the evil chi coming out of them was very dense. Even from far away, one could feel that the evil chi was trying to invade their bodies and freeze their blood. There's a great item on each coffin. The twins' eyes brightened. If the items on the 32nd floor were all pseudo-extreme rank items, then what about the 33rd floor? Not to mention the others, just the one in the middle would most likely be an extreme rank item. Extreme rank item. Apart from Yi-chun and a few others, everyone else's eyes were burning with passion, wishing that they could rush over and snatch it. The first one to move was Lin Yuxuan. Among the 6 people fighting for the items on the 32nd floor, he was the only one who did not get one, which made him very unwilling. In the past, he had always had a smooth sailing life. Whenever he joined a team, he would be the most dazzling existence. However, in this team, he realized that he was at the bottom. None of them were weaker than him, and there were even a few who were obviously stronger than him. This was something that he could not accept no matter what. Shoo! His protective Zhen Yuan shone as Lin Yuxuan rushed toward the coffin closest to him. Don't be impulsive. Jin Wanshuang and the elder warned Lin Yuxuan at the same time. Lin Yuxuan sneered, but his speed did not decrease. Got it. With a flash, Lin Yuxuan appeared next to a coffin on the outer edge and grabbed the item on it. It was a battle halberd, one of the weapons he wanted the most. So cold. Grabbing the halberd, Lin Yuxuan suddenly shivered. This halberd seemed to be made from 10,000 years old black ice. An extremely cold yin-chi flowed along his palm and extended to his arm. His entire right arm was covered in a thin layer of blue ice. It was bone-chilling. Boom! All of a sudden, the lid of the coffin in front of Lin Yuxuan flew up, as if someone had blasted it away from the inside. Shortly after, a silhouette sat up. It was a middle-aged man with an extremely pale face. His eyes were wide open, but there were no pupils, only the whites of his eyes. Not good. Lin Yuxuan knew that things had gotten serious, so he hurried to retreat. However, with the yin-chi invading his body, his reaction speed was a bit slower. Ha! The middle-aged man's hand grabbed Lin Yuxuan's right arm and pulled. Ah! Lin Yuxuan screamed out. His entire right arm had been torn off, but there was no blood, as it had all been frozen by the yin-chi. After tearing off Lin Yuxuan's right arm, the battle halberd landed in the middle-aged man's hand. He jumped out and waved the halberd in the air, cutting off Lin Yuxuan's head. Resurrection of the dead. Yi-Chen squinted his eyes, his hand gripping the handle of the evil vanquishing sword. The middle-aged man grinned, and an endless suction force burst out from his body. Lin Yuxuan's warm blood spurted out from the cut on his neck and was sucked into the middle-aged man's mouth. As the blood flowed into his body, everyone noticed that the middle-aged man's face was a bit rosier. At least, his skin was not as pale as a dummy's. It was more elastic. Boom, boom, boom. The middle-aged man stood firmly on the ground. He waved his hand, and except for the coffin in the middle, the other 3 coffins were all blown away. The treasures on the coffins fell into the coffins. The next moment, a shocking scene occurred. In each of the 3 coffins, a figure sat up. They were the evil old man, the stocky woman, and the skinny young man. The 3 of them held their respective treasures and jumped out of the coffins. They stood side by side with the middle-aged man. Endless yin-chi erupted from their bodies, freezing everything. Chapter 795. How is this possible? People who have been dead for at least 10,000 years can still come back to life? This goes against the great Tao and cannot be tolerated by the heavens. The aged old man mumbled. Jin Wanshuang said, according to the records, True Water Palace was destroyed 15,000 years ago. In other words, these people have been dead for almost 15,000 years. 15,000 years. Even the bones of life and death kings would have turned into fossils by now. These don't seem to be life and death kings. Yi-Chen sized up the 4 with his soul eyes. He discovered that they didn't have Jin Yuan or any other kind of energy on them. Only yin-chi that could freeze everything. This yin-chi originated from their bodies and had already fused with their bodies. As long as the yin-chi was not extinguished, their bodies would not perish. As for whether they had consciousness or not, only the heavens knew. The yellow-robed woman analyzed. They should have been sealed in a coffin by some kind of evil secret art. Although they are already dead, the vitality in their bodies is not extinguished. After 10,000 years of nurturing, they have already fused with the yin qi, becoming another kind of life form. Not a person, not a corpse, but another kind of life form. Everybody frowned. This was beyond their imagination. Stop acting mysterious. Watch me, Dayerba, destroy them. Dayerba stepped out and crossed his blades, slashing out a cross-shaped blade light at the leading middle-aged man. Puff! It was unknown whether the middle-aged man's reaction was too slow or Dayerba's attack speed was too fast, but the cross-shaped blade light accurately struck his chest, leaving a cross-shaped wound. Hazy yin qi pervaded the wound, but no blood could be seen. Recovered, the aged old man mumbled. Everybody looked at the middle-aged man's wound. The hazy yin qi had turned into flesh and blood, healing the wound. From the outside, not a trace of it could be seen. The middle-aged man lowered his head and looked at his chest. It seemed that Dayerba's cross-shaped blade light had awakened his consciousness. He then let out a long roar that sounded like a ghost's cry and a wolf's howl. The lamp on the 33rd floor was covered in a layer of frost. The light flickered, but it did not go out in the end. A formless sound wave spread out toward Yi Chun and the rest. Besides Yi Chun, Murong Qingsheng, and the yellow-robed woman, the others all groaned as their souls shook. They did not have Yi Chun's 5 times stronger soul power, his destruction sword spirit and immortal sword spirit, Murong Qingsheng's perfect demi-demon bloodline, her demonic soul, and the yellow-robed woman's unfathomable power. Even with the soul membrane of a demi-king, it would be hard to defend against the sound wave. Without a sound, the middle-aged man disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Dayerba. Holding the halberd, he stabbed towards Dayerba's head. Piss off! Dayerba did not expect the middle-aged man's speed to be this fast, so he was caught off guard. The barbarian's wild nature made him forget about life and death. He crossed his blades and attacked toward the middle-aged man's neck without caring about anything else. The two had started a battle of life and death. Shoo! The middle-aged man's battle spear pierced through Dayerba's protective Zhenyuan layer and left a small bloody hole on his forehead. Dayerba's blades had also almost cut off the middle-aged man's head. The cross-blade marks almost went through his chest. Brother! Dayer Xiong roared as he held the axe in one hand and the jade ruler in the other, attacking toward the middle-aged man's body. The huge axe had only made a small crack on the middle-aged man's body, while the jade ruler seemed to melt some of his yin qi like snow in the spring. The middle-aged man looked shocked as he backed out hurriedly. Dayer Xiong chased after him, waving his axe and jade ruler in the air, covering the middle-aged man. Shoo! The middle-aged man's body suddenly collapsed, turning into a hazy yin qi and returning to his original position, standing together with the other 3. The wounds on his body had already healed completely. However, if one observed carefully, one could see that the yin qi was slightly thinner. The jade ruler can cut off his yin qi. Yi Chun came to a conclusion and exchanged a look with Murong Qingsheng. Brother! Dayer Xiong gave up on chasing the middle-aged man and returned to Dayerba, shaking his body. Dayerba's pupils were enlarged, and his eyes were lifeless. On his forehead, there was a fingernail-sized bloody hole, from which yin qi kept coming out. Dead. The elder shook his head in pity. That moment had passed too fast, and they could not help in time. Fuck off! Dayer Xiong cursed loudly, and then burst into tears. I don't think we should stay here for long. The cold-looking young man frowned and said. The lady in yellow nodded. As long as the yin qi is not destroyed, their bodies will not be destroyed. Besides that, there is still a coffin that has not been opened. Dayerba's body was extremely powerful, but still could not block out the middle-aged man's attack. It was not hard to imagine how powerful the middle-aged man was. Of course, it was also related to the fact that the halberd was a pseudo-extreme rank item. Besides the 4 middle-aged men, the one in the middle coffin might be even more powerful. It might even be the body of the mysterious Yin King. I am afraid that we will not be able to get out. Murong Qingcheng said suddenly. How could we not be able to get out? Everyone turned around. No one knew when, but the entrance to the 33rd floor had been sealed up by 4 coffin lids. The coffin lids were surrounded by Yin Shi. Boom! Jinwan held the stick with both of his hands and threw out an attack. The golden light shone brightly, and the coffin lids kept shaking. The Yin Shi was destroyed by the golden light. Damn it! The elder raised his purple gold bowl, and a beam of purple gold light shot out from the bowl, shining on the Yin Shi on the coffin lids. With a sizzling sound, the Yin Shi seemed to have met its nemesis and was destroyed. But what made them frown was that no matter how much Yin Shi was destroyed, there would always be an equal amount of Yin Shi pouring out of the coffin lids. It seemed like the lids were the source of the Yin Shi. During that time, Yi Chun took out his evil, shattering sword and threw out a sword attack on the Yin Shi. The evil shattering sword was indeed the most powerful one among the 4 evil shattering items. A huge amount of Yin Shi was destroyed. It almost reached the coffin lids. But in the end, it was too weak. Seeing Yi Chun and the rest attacking the coffin lids, the middle-aged man and the other 3 moved at the same time. They turned into blurry Yin Shi and attacked the group. If they did not defend, their blood might be frozen by the Yin Shi, and they would be killed. Therefore, the group had to give up on attacking the coffin lids and turn around to fight them. According to the previous situation, everyone already knew that the evil vanquishing treasures were the bane of this kind of evil beings. The 4 people with the evil vanquishing treasures all split up, each fighting one of them. The other 3 supported them from the side, wearing down their opponent's Yin energy. His brother Daer Ba had been killed, so Daer Xiong hated the middle-aged man to the bone. He put away his huge axe and crazily attacked him with his jade ruler. The one helping him was the cold-looking youngster. On the other side, Jin Wanchuang was fighting against the bulky woman alone, while the elder and the yellow-robed lady were fighting against the evil elder. As for Murong Qingcheng, she was naturally with Yi Chun, fighting against the skinny youngster. Dark Devour. Murong Qingcheng formed a seal with both of her hands, creating a black light ball that was continuously rotating beside the skinny youngster, trying to devour him. However, the Yin Shi on his body was too powerful, and it froze the black light ball instead. Whoosh! The skinny youngster turned into Yin Shi and attacked Murong Qingcheng. Cut! With the evil shattering sword in his hand, Yi Chun took a step forward and threw out a sword attack at the Yin Shi. With a shoo sound, a lot of the Yin Shi was cut down, and the skinny youngster's body appeared again, fighting against Yi Chun once again. He had no time to deal with Murong Qingcheng. The evil shattering sword and the weapon in the skinny youngster's hand were both pseudo-extreme rank items. One contained evil shattering power, while the other contained evil power. They were like fire and water, but Yi Chun found out that no matter how much Yin Shi he took away from the skinny youngster, the 33 floors of the tower would still have Yin Shi to nourish him, making his efforts futile. Let me see how much Yin Shi you have. Yi Chun squinted his eyes as he waved the evil shattering sword in his hand to the extreme, performing the spiritual sword attack. Shoo! 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 In terms of battling techniques, how could the skinny youngster compete with Yi Chun? His body was cut into pieces by the sword Qi, and he was at a complete disadvantage. Waning Moon. After throwing out hundreds of sword attacks in one breath, Yi Chun waved his arm, and a crescent-shaped sword Qi flew out, slicing through the skinny youngster's body. The power of that sword attack was way too powerful, and the skinny youngster was cut in half. Half of his Yin Qi was gone, and his power was greatly reduced. Besides Yi Chun's side, the others were also starting to gain the upper hand. After all, they had evil shattering items, which could naturally suppress evil beings. If it were not for the fact that the opponent had Yin Shi to nourish him, he would have been beaten to a pulp already. Break! The evil shattering stick in Jin Wanchuang's hand was extremely aggressive. It shattered half of the bulky woman's body, and a huge amount of gold light swept out. Collect! The elder held the purple gold alms bowl, and beams of purple gold light shot out, turning the evil elder in front of him into 1,000 holes. Occasionally, some of the Yin-Chi would be sucked into the purple-gold alms bowl and turned into nothingness. The Erxiong's jade ruler could be used for protection. In close combat, the middle-aged man was not his opponent, and his Yin-Chi was shaved off layer after layer by the jade ruler. As the Yin-Chi in the tower became thinner and thinner, the coffin in the middle of the 5 coffins started to move without a sound. Since everyone was busy fighting, no one noticed it. The coffin lid did not move obviously, but it started to move inch by inch, and the movement was getting bigger and bigger. While the 7 of them were fighting, Shi Xiaobao and the rest were blocked by the coffin lid at the entrance. No matter how hard they tried, they could not move the coffin lid at all. Damn it! Shi Xiaobao, who had turned into his real body, roared and shot out a gold light at the coffin lid. With a rumbling sound, the 6 of them were blown back by the coffin lid's power, returning to the 32nd floor. Outside the mysterious Yin Tower, an elder in black robes appeared out of nowhere. His eyes looked at the top of the 33rd floor, and his body suddenly disappeared. After a while, he was jolted back again. I can't tear open the surreal space and enter. The elder in black revealed a surprised expression. Well, the more mysterious this tower is, the more precious the treasure is. The elder in black chuckled and stepped into the first floor of the tower, gradually disappearing into the darkness. Chapter 796. Bewitching Mirror Shattering. On the 33rd floor of the tower, Yichun had already used up 1/5 of the skinny teenager's evil chi. This 1/5 would not go down no matter what, since the teenager's recovery speed was only a bit slower than his own. Plus, Yichun would not be able to keep killing him for a long time, since the latter was very powerful and had a pseudo-extreme rank evil weapon. He would still be a threat to Yichun, seeing that it would be hard to kill him with other methods. Yichun took advantage of the fact that the skinny teenager's evil chi was at its weakest and performed his space profound sword attack, bewitching mirror shattering. As he waved out a sword attack, the space around the skinny teenager twisted. His whole body seemed to have been embedded in a mirror. Even if he turned into a hazy evil chi and tried to run around, he would not be able to get out. Boom! The mirror was shattered, and the skinny teenager was twisted into nothingness by the space power. Yichun squeezed his eyes. In his sight, a hazy shadow suddenly appeared. It was the skinny teenager. His body had already become so faint that it could not be seen with naked eyes. If it were not for Yichun's sharp eyes, he would not have been able to notice this change. The hazy shadow kept twisting and changing its shape, as if it was trying to return to its peak. But eventually, it failed and disappeared into nothingness. Finally dead. As long as the evil chi was not destroyed, the body would not be destroyed. It sounded powerful indeed, but as long as the opponent's evil chi was destroyed in a short period of time, he would not have enough power to absorb the evil chi around him. Then, he would be able to kill him for good. Of course, it would be very hard if the power difference was not that big. Plus, he could not be hit by the opponent's attack. Once he was hit, the evil chi would invade his body, and that would be the end of him. Yichun was able to kill the skinny teenager because he had the evil shattering sword and the bewitching mirror shattering. Without any of them, he would not be able to succeed. Letting out a breath, Yichun glanced over and noticed Lin Yuxuan's dead body not far away. Almost subconsciously, Yichun reached out his hand and sucked Lin Yuxuan's storage ring over, then threw it into his own storage ring. Murong Qingsheng leaned over and said, "This Yin Chi is really hard to deal with. It's not an ordinary Yin Chi. It seems to have a life of its own." Yichun said, "Vitality can give birth to life, such as wind spirits and thunder spirits. Yin energy should also be able to give birth to Yin spirits and evil spirits. In some places where Yin Chi gathered, it was possible for evil spirits to be born. However, the strength of these evil spirits was not high. They could only cause trouble for low-level martial artists and ordinary people. If they encountered high-level martial artists, they would be helpless. However, the evil spirits that were born in some places with extreme Yin Chi were especially terrifying. The thin young man and the other 3 were not people, nor were they corpses. They might be a life form that had fused with the evil spirits. Yichin could kill the skinny youngster, but the other three couldn't. Although they had evil vanquishing artifacts, they didn't have the means to erase a large amount of Inchi in one go. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Yichin's bewitching mirror shattering was. Thunder Devour. From a great distance, Yichin shot out a lightning ball towards the bulky woman who was fighting against Jin Wanchuan. There was a loud bang. A huge amount of lightning shot out, and the bulky woman's body became a lot more illusory. This was the sign of consuming too much Inchi. Yichin's Thunder Devour contained a powerful thunder power, which was the bane of Inchi. On the other hand, the Destruction Sword Intent was the bane of all things. Combined with the evil vanquishing sword's evil shattering power, its effect was not any weaker than bewitching mirror shattering, and might even be stronger. The reason why he didn't use it on the skinny youngster was because that was a head-on battle, and the latter had a pseudo-extreme rank evil artifact, which made the Thunder Devour ineffective. However, it was different now. This was a sneak attack. This was a rare opportunity. Jin Wanchuang's demon, subduing Pestle, turned into beams of golden light as he threw out dozens of attacks at the bulky woman. The bulky woman couldn't even run away and could only slowly erase her Inchi bit by bit, eventually following the skinny youngster's footsteps. Many thanks. Jin Wanchuang nodded at Yichin. With two dead, the remaining two were naturally nothing to worry about. Under the combined attacks of the four evil shattering artifacts, the four evil beings that were neither human nor corpses turned into ashes. It was worth mentioning that after the evil treasure in the opponent's hand lost its master, cracks appeared on it. Then, with a bang, it exploded, transforming into thick Inchi. The Inchi converged on the treasure on the lid of the coffin in the middle of the 33rd floor, and then entered it. Things are not looking good. Only then did everyone realize that the lid of the coffin in the middle had moved quite a bit to the side, and a gap had been opened up. Open the exit quickly. The elder's hair stood on end as he held the purple gold alms bowl and turned around to attack the coffin lid. Beams of purple gold light shot out. The others did not say a word as they attacked the coffin lid with all of their power. Under the continuous attacks of the seven, the coffin lid kept on shaking, and the Inchi became chaotic. Right then, the lady in yellow's expression also turned serious as she took out a huge dark blue rapier from her storage ring. The aura coming from it was not any weaker than Yi Chen's evil shattering sword or the other evil shattering artifacts. It was obviously a pseudo-extreme rank artifact. Holding the rapier in her right hand, the lady in yellow yelled and threw out an attack onto the coffin lid. Rumble. The power of this attack was even more powerful than Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering. The intense dark blue light was like a sun that rose up slowly, evaporating a huge amount of Inchi. This is... Everyone looked at the lady in yellow with shock. She's a top half-step king warrior. Murong Qingshang said with a low voice. Yichen nodded. She has hidden it well. With a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, even normal top half-step king warriors would not be able to compete with her. A pseudo-extreme rank artifact could increase one's power exponentially. The lady in yellow was already a top half-step king warrior. With a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, she could be said to be unbeatable under the life and death realm. Unless the opponent was also a top half-step king warrior with a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, it would be impossible for them to compete with her. The coffin lid started to shake, and the gap between them was getting bigger and bigger. Right at that moment, the Inchi in the 33rd floor of the mysterious Yin Tower suddenly started spinning violently. Then, like a funnel, it poured into the coffin in the middle of the floor. Such a powerful sound made everyone's body feel cold. Their protective Jin Yuan started to freeze. Hurry! Jin Wanchuang yelled. Boom! 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 5 different colored lights shone together. Right then, everyone did not hold back at all. Unfortunately, they were still one step too late. Boom! The lid of the coffin in the middle was blown away, and a blurry human figure appeared out of it. He reached out his right hand, grabbing the flying great weapon in the air. Yichen continued to attack as he looked back. He could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. It was out. This time, it was an expressionless elder in yellow robes. His clothes were torn and tattered, looking like they could be eroded at any second. He was holding a strange-looking weapon in his hand, which looked like two great swords that were placed side by side. There were two sword tips, and a cold sword light was shooting out of the two sword tips, freezing the surreal space. It is the mysterious Een King. It must be her. This time, we will die for sure. The elder was almost desperate. Judging from the powerful evil chi coming from the elder in yellow, he was definitely a former life and death realm warrior. That strange-looking weapon must be an extreme-rank great weapon as well. Either one of them would be able to kill them instantly, not to mention having both at the same time. Die, die, die. Different from the four evil beings before, the mysterious Een King could only say simple words. But it was these simple words that made everyone face a huge disaster. After the first word was said, all 7 of them were blown backward, pressing against the wall. Their heads were spinning, and their hearts were beating 10 times faster than normal. All of their blood was flowing backward, and their limbs were numb. After the second word was said, besides Yi Chun, Murong Qingsheng, the lady in yellow, and Er Xiong, the other 3 were bleeding out of all of their orifices. Their hearts were beating like a drum. Soul Sound Wave Attack. Yi Chun was shocked. Soul Sound Wave Attack was to let the soul spread out in the form of sound waves. It could not only hurt the soul, but also cause a huge pressure on the body. If one of the 2 was weaker, then both of them would be killed. It did not matter if it was the death of the soul or the death of the body. Immortal, suppress. The first thing that came to Yi Chun's mind was not himself, but Murong Qingsheng. Although her body was a perfect demi-demon body, her soul would not be that powerful. It was very possible that she would be killed by her soul. At this moment of life and death, inside Yi Chun's soul ocean, the immortal sword spirit that had not made a breakthrough for a long time finally condensed into a rank 4 immortal sword spirit. But right then, Yi Chun did not know about the breakthrough at all. He only knew that he had to push his immortal sword spirit with all of his power and release the eternal immortal sword intent to protect Murong Qingsheng. The third word of death had finally arrived. Boom, boom, boom. Jin Wan Shuang, the elder, and the cold-looking teenagers' heads exploded, blood spraying out everywhere. This was the result of their soul shattering, and their Zhun Yuan going out of control, rushing around inside their bodies crazily. Pooh! Although the lady in yellow was a top half-step king warrior, and her soul membrane was extremely powerful, it was still not enough to block out the mysterious Een King's soul sound wave attack. She puked out a mouthful of blood, her face extremely pale. On the other hand, Murong Qingsheng had Yi Chun's immortal sword intent to protect her, so her soul would not shatter. But this soul sound wave had still gone through the immortal sword intent and landed on Murong Qingsheng's soul ocean, knocking her out. As for Yi Chun, he was also suffering bitterly. His soul power was 5 times that of normal people, but because he did not have a soul membrane, the soul sound wave directly rushed into his sea of soul, sweeping around crazily and creating huge waves. Sensing their master's danger, the destruction sword spirit and the immortal sword spirit both shone with a bright sword intent light, lighting up his soul ocean and clearing out the abnormal soul sound wave. Among the 7, only Er Xiong did not have any problems, which was really strange. Am I going to die here? Yi Chun had finally made it through the soul sound wave. Looking at the mysterious evil king floating in the air, a bitter expression appeared on his face. The latter had only uttered the word die 3 times, and they had almost been killed. If he had attacked with a single attack, they would have been dead for sure. Boom! A sudden change occurred. The coffin lid that sealed the entrance was struck by a tremendous force and flew inward. Chapter 797. An elder in black robes, who was not tall, but had an aura as deep as the ocean, walked in. The black-robed old man clearly did not expect to see a yellow-robed old man floating in the air on the 33rd floor after clearing the obstacles. The yellow-robed old man's clothes were in a weathered state. Dense in-chi wafted from his body, freezing the surrounding space. Evil Spirit King. No, he looks like an evil spirit, but not. As the demi-demon king of the demi-demon race, the elder in black had seen a lot. He could tell that this elder in yellow was not just an evil spirit. He was a life form that was even more evil than an evil spirit. Once he was exposed in the normal world, he would be attacked by the god's thunder. However, inside this mysterious Een Tower, the destiny was blocked, and he could not sense his existence. Apart from the yellow-robed old man, the black-robed old man also sensed 3 other living beings. He turned his head to look, and his eyes couldn't help but brighten up. Among the 3 lucky survivors, the energy fluctuation emitted by that beautiful woman was actually the devil power. Devil power could only be cultivated by those with the perfect demonic bloodline, and there were only a handful of people with the perfect demonic bloodline. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that this woman was the one with the perfect demonic bloodline that his clansmen were talking about. He didn't expect that when he was looking for the perfect demonic bloodline, she would come to him on her own accord. It was like wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without even looking for it. Demi-Demon King. Yi-chun and the girl in yellow squinted their eyes. Only the Demi-Demon King Jin Yuan would have demon chi that could not be hidden. In other words, the demon chi was already the element of their Jin Yuan. For example, the fire element Jin Yuan could be called demon fire element Jin Yuan, which was much more powerful than normal fire element Jin Yuan. This place was not good to stay for long. Yi-chun had a bad premonition. The opponent was most likely here for Moron. Right now, Moron was still in a coma, so he could only rely on himself. Carrying Moron with his left hand, Yi-chun stood up. He stared at the elder in black and moved his body. Huh! When he passed by Daer Xiong, he was knocked down to the ground by Yi-chun. It turned out that Daer Xiong's physical body was extremely powerful. Although the soul sound wave of the elder in yellow had shattered his soul, it did not cause any damage to his physical body. Although he looked normal on the outside, he was already dead. Where do you want to go? The black-clothed old man slowly stretched out his right hand and grinned. Leave this place. Yi-chun secretly gathered his vital energy, his eyes subconsciously glancing at the evil vanquishing sword in front of him. If my guess is correct, you've killed many of my demonic human clan's clansmen. Now, you can't go anywhere. This will be your grave. As he spoke, the black-robed old man made a grabbing motion with his right hand. Just half a step, and Yi-chun would be able to step on the evil shattering sword. However, right then, he and Moron were both bound by an invisible power. Their feet were floating in the air, unable to move at all. The power of a demonic human king's grab had already surpassed the limit of a half-step king warrior. Without experiencing it for themselves, it would be hard to imagine how powerful a life and death realm demonic human king would be. That kind of power had already reached the level where it could do whatever it wanted. Clatter. The black-robed old man's power was very ingenious, not harming Moron at all. However, it made Yi-chun feel as if he had been coiled by a huge python. His bones creaked as if they couldn't bear the burden. The Jin Yuan he had just gathered was forcibly cut off from its source and was completely blocked. On the right side, the yellow-robed lady held her breath as she watched this scene. She was inwardly regretting that Yi-chun couldn't see through her, but how could she see through Yi-chun? The fact proved that her intuition was right. Yi-chun was far more mysterious than she had imagined. Everyone had died, and only she and Yi-chun were safe and sound. Moreover, she was the strongest half-step king warrior, while Yi-chun was only at the peak of late sea of Soul Realm. Unfortunately, such a genius was about to die, and she herself couldn't even protect herself. She could only hope that this demonic human king would be in a better mood. At the critical moment, the yellow-robed old man, mysterious Een King, saved Yi-chun's life. Die. The mysterious Een King sensed that the black-robed old man was not normal. So he held a strange weapon in his right hand and waved it down. That horrifying chi power seemed like it was going to cut open the surreal space inside the tower. If the black-robed old man did not let go of Yi Chun and use his full power, he might be wounded by that attack. Letting go of Yi Chun, the black-robed old man pushed out with both of his hands. Boom! The power from the mysterious Yin King was cold and evil, while the demonic Zhen Yuan from the black-robed old man was aggressive and dark. With the two powers clashing together, it was like the end of the world. Yi Chun did not even need to look to know that in the middle of the 33rd floor, there was a destructive tornado coming toward him. If he did not get away from the 33rd floor in time, he would most likely be killed. Run! Without thinking, Yi Chun stepped on the evil shattering sword and performed his defensive sword spell. The pseudo-extreme rank great sword turned into a beam of light, shooting out of the 33rd floor within a second. He did not even have the time to pick up his storage ring, because any delay would cost him his life. As he flew on his sword, a layer of white cuticle appeared on his body as well, which was indeed the dragon bone defense layer. Outside of the dragon bone defense layer was his protective Zhen Yuan, which was imprinted with bronze symbols. With the two layers of defense layered together, it was his most powerful defense. Yi Chun was fast, but the lady in yellow was not slow either. At this moment, she finally revealed her identity as a demonic beast. With a twist of her body, she transformed into a giant snake that seemed to be made of yellow crystal. The thickest part of this giant yellow crystal snake was as thick as a waist, and the thinnest part was its neck, which was only as thick as a calf. On its head, there was a small yellow horn that flickered with a pure, flawless yellow light. Shoo! The yellow crystal snake that the lady in yellow had turned into was as fast as lightning as it shot out of the entrance of the 33rd floor, following closely behind Yi Chun. The destructive tornado was spreading too fast, and the whole 33rd floor was covered by it. The corpses of Jin Wanshuang and the rest had been turned into ashes within a second, and even their storage rings had been slowly eroded until nothing was left. In the next second, the destructive tornado had caught up with them through the entrance of the 33rd floor. It was like a hot knife through butter, and nothing could stop it. When Yi Chun arrived at the 31st floor, he was finally caught up by the destructive tornado. The powerful power touched his body, and Yi Chun felt like he was in the middle of an endless ocean. On top of the ocean, there were endless waves, and he could not control the direction of his flying sword at all. I have to hold on. The protective Zhen Yuan layer that had been activated along with the bronze armor started to wobble, and its colors started to dim down. The bronze symbols made a couple of popping sounds before disappearing. Yi Chun held onto Murong Qingchang tightly, protecting her in front of him. Even if the destructive tornado broke through his protective Zhen Yuan layer, it would not hurt her immediately. Stumbling, Yi Chun rushed to the 30th floor with Murong Qingchang in his arms. The destructive tornado had finally weakened a lot, but what made his expression change was that another huge explosion was heard from the 33rd floor. A powerful vibration was transmitted down through the tower. Not good. Yi Chun looked extremely serious. The first wave of the destructive tornado had not disappeared yet, and if the second wave caught up, it would be impossible for him to survive. While flying on his sword, a lot of thoughts flashed through Yi Chun's mind. Too weak. I'm still too weak. One life and death realm warriors battle, and the resulting tornado was already enough to kill me, and that was only because I had escaped fast enough. If I'd been slower, I would have been dead already. Is this the power of life and death realm warriors? Even a tiny bit of it could kill any warrior below life and death realm. If I did not have the bronze armor and the defensive sword spell, would I still be alive? For the first time, Yi Chun truly felt the gap between him and life and death realm warriors. That kind of gap was like a chasm that could not be crossed. His protective Zhen Yuan continued to weaken, and the aftermath of the first wave of destruction storm could no longer hurt him. However, an even greater danger had arrived. The second wave of destruction storm had caught up with him. Although it had weakened a lot as time passed, once it overlapped with the aftermath of the first wave, its power would not be far off, even if it was not as strong as the previous one. You owe me a favor. A yellow light flashed once behind him, and a massive yellow crystal snake wrapped around Yi Chun. At the same time, An even more horrifying destructive tornado appeared, drowning the three of them. Yichen realized that the yellow light around the snake had the special effect of weakening the destructive tornado. It was like a water snake swimming against the current. Although the water was a hindrance, it was much smaller as she swam. Her speed was even faster than Yichen's flying sword. Yichen could feel that the woman in yellow had a special attack. The snake spoke in human language. "This is my special power." "I see. Thank you. I do owe you a favor." Favors were the hardest to repay, but it was also not easy to do so. Let's get out of this first. The destructive tornado was too powerful. The third, fourth, and fifth waves had already appeared. It was hard to imagine what kind of battle the two on the 33rd floor were having. Right now, they were still on the 24th floor, and there were still a lot of floors below. The destructive tornado would be able to attack all the way to the first floor of the tower. Only after getting out of the tower would they be truly safe. As soon as they arrived at the 23rd floor, Yi Chun and the woman heard a few screams. Looking over, Shi Xiaobao's group had been torn apart by the destructive tornado. Only Shi Xiaobao and the strange old man survived. The others were all dead. 22nd floor, 21st floor, 20th floor, 19th floor. The third wave of the destructive storm stacked on top of each other, keeping the destructive storm at its original power. Then came the fourth wave, the fifth wave, and the destructive storm continued to increase. Inside the mysterious tower, there seemed to be an infinite amount of light, lighting up the entire tower. The first floor, after half a cup of tea's time, 4 figures flew out, all with pale faces and bleeding from all 7 orifices. Shi Xiaobao had already returned to his golden lion form. The golden fur on his body was completely bald. After a miserable roar, he flew out. The strange old man mumbled and also left. The yellow crystal snake turned into the woman in yellow. She smiled and said, "See you later." Then, she spat out a mouthful of blood and left. So close. The dragon bone defense layer on Yi Chen's body disappeared as he carried Murong Qingsheng and left. After an unknown period of time, another human figure flew out. It was indeed the old man in black. Right now, he looked even worse than Yi Chun and the rest. His chi was a lot weaker, and there was a cut on his shoulder. Although the muscles inside were not damaged at all, Life and Death Realm warriors had an undying body, so it might have been cut off already. The dead mysterious King is even more powerful. Damn it. The old man in black tore open the space and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 798. After the old man left, the mysterious King wanted to rush out of the mysterious tower and escape. However, as soon as he stepped out, a black hole suddenly appeared in the sky above the ocean. Inside the black hole, a golden lightning pierced through the sky and landed on the mysterious King's foot as if it had teleported. Pop! The mysterious evil king's entire foot was burned into ashes by the golden flame, and the fire spread towards his body. However, when it entered the mysterious tower, the golden flame died out automatically, and the mysterious evil king also gave up on leaving the mysterious tower. Above the ocean, the elder's figure appeared. He raised his head and saw the black hole slowly disappear. The expression on his face changed many times. Although the mysterious tower restricted the mysterious evil king's freedom, it also increased his battling ability. Damn, I can't believe that in one battle, I lost hundreds of years of cultivation. This hundreds of years of cultivation, I will need at least a few months to recover. The elder's expression was not good. Losing a lot of cultivation, although it wouldn't decrease his battling ability, it would affect his stamina. Most importantly, if he didn't recover the lost cultivation immediately, the longer it took, the harder it would be for him to recover. They shouldn't have gone far. Should I go after them? A look of hesitation flashed across the elder's face. Pooh! Suddenly, the elder spat out a mouthful of cold blood. The blood was gray, and once it touched the air, it made a sizzling sound. Damn, I will clear out the yin qi in my body first. Feeling that there was too much yin qi in his body, it would be a hindrance to recovering his cultivation, so the elder gave up on the idea of searching for Murong Qingsheng. To him, as long as he recovered, finding a person would be a piece of cake. There was no need to make things too difficult for himself. Pop! The figure disappeared like a black bubble, and the elder disappeared without a trace. Yi Chun took Murong Qingsheng with him, but didn't leave the ruins immediately. Instead, he found a very hidden building and temporarily moved in. If he went back the way he came, he would undoubtedly encounter the self-exploding fireflies. Yi Chun was not confident that he could leave this place safely with the unconscious Murong. It was better to wait for Murong to regain consciousness first. However, Yi Chun was also a little anxious. It was hard to say how long it would take for Murong Rong to recover from the soul shock. It was possible that Murong Rong could recover now, but it was also possible that she would not wake up for a long time. This depended on her luck, and it also depended on whether Murong Rong's soul was condensed or not. Spreading a blanket on the floor, Yi Chun carefully placed Murong on it. Looking at her pale and delicate face, Yi Chun sighed softly and sat cross-legged to the side. He began to regulate his breathing and heal his injuries. If it was anyone else, they would have suffered serious internal injuries from the Tiamat's wrath and would not be able to recover within 3 to 5 days. Fortunately, Yi Chun had the most basic immortal body. As long as the injuries did not affect his core, he would be able to recover in a short period of time. Half an hour later, Yi Chun slowly let out a breath of turbid qi and opened his eyes. I didn't expect this to be a blessing in disguise. The mysterious Yin King's soul sound wave greatly increased the burden on my heart, but it also stimulated the effect of the heart-nurturing grass. Originally, I would need more than a month to refine the heart-nurturing grass into my heart. But now, I only need a week. I'll take this opportunity and try to break through to Half-Step King realm. Even if I can't break through, I'll at least familiarize myself with it. Keeping his promise, Yi Chun began his second attempt at Half-Step King warrior realm. On the 5th day, Murong Qingsheng groaned and woke up from her coma. I'm not dead. Murong Qingsheng thought that she was dead for sure. Now that she had woken up, it proved that she was only unconscious. At that time, her soul was in a mess, and she thought that she was dead for sure. Turning her head, Murong Qingsheng saw Yi Chun sitting cross-legged on the ground. Steam was rising from his body, and he seemed to be beside a stove. Knowing that Yi Chun was trying to break through to Half-Step King realm, Murong Qingsheng didn't disturb him. She crawled up from the bed and sat cross-legged on the ground. Taking a deep breath, she slowly entered a meditative state. On the 8th day, Yi Chun woke up. Huff. It's still not enough. Seems like I'll have to refine all 3 heart-nurturing grass before I can enter Half-Step King realm. However, I've finally refined the first one. Beside him, Murong Qingsheng sensed Yi Chun's movements and opened her eyes. Still not successful? Yi Chun said joyfully, You're awake. Yeah, it feels like a dream. Murong Qingsheng leaned over. Being alive was a gift from the heavens. She couldn't bear to die. It's good that you're awake. As for breaking through to Half-Step King realm, there's no rush. I'll succeed sooner or later. When Murong Qingsheng hadn't woken up, Yi Chun had always felt that he couldn't enter the right state. There were too many worries. The soul was a person's foundation, and it was very troublesome. Hugging Murong, Yi Chun stood up and said, Since you're awake, let's leave this place first. This is not a good place. How is mysterious Yin King? Murong Qingsheng suddenly asked. She didn't know how Yi Chun had brought her out safely. Yi Chun smiled and said, It's all thanks to your demonic human king. He fought with mysterious Yin King, and I took the opportunity to leave the 33rd floor. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for us to leave alive. As for mysterious Yin King and demonic human king, I think they're still alive. At their level, killing each other is very difficult. It's the chaotic demonic ocean's demonic human king. Murong Qingsheng said in astonishment. It should be. I'll try my best to enter Half-Step King realm. Otherwise, if I run into them, I won't even have the strength to fight back. Although entering Half-Step King realm meant that Yi Chun couldn't be an opponent of life and death kings, he had a large amount of Zhen Yuan crystals, which could allow him to increase his cultivation base to a certain extent. Once his cultivation base was enough, adding on his own tricks, it would be better than having no hope at all. Murong Qingcheng woke up, and the two left the ruins with much more ease. Those self-exploding fireflies still couldn't do anything to her dark force field. After leaving the ruins, the two dived for a long time. Only when they were tens of thousands of li away from this place did they break out of the water. Huff! Breathing in the fresh air, the two felt as if they had seen the sun again. Let's find an uninhabited island first. Yichen looked around and said to Murong Qingqing, I feel that my cultivation base can increase again. Murong Qingqing nodded. Finding an island in the boundless ocean was too easy. In less than half a day, the two found a relatively safe island. After the effect of the heart-nourishing grass had been used up, Yi Chun swallowed the second one. While refining it, he comprehended the space profound while studying the bewitching mirror shattering. The two complemented each other, and studying them together brought about unimaginable benefits. As Yi Chen's first space, profound sword art, bewitching mirror shattering opened a new door for Yi Chun. As he studied it more and more, Yi Chun felt that the space profound was more and more profound. Wherever one was, there was a space. Space was not a box, but a container that could hold everything. Even time itself had an inseparable connection with this container. As the intensity of the bewitching mirror shattering increased, Yi Chen faintly felt that the things he saw were different from before. Before, he was limited to the surface, but now he could already look at the essence of things. Perhaps it was a little hard to adapt to looking at the essence of things at the beginning, but once he got used to it, it would have an unimaginable effect on his future path. Break! As the sword slashed out, the seawater on the east side of the island twisted and folded, splitting into countless layers. Each layer was like a glass container. Pung! The seawater within the range of the space power was completely shattered, and waves soared into the sky. It should be about 80 to 90% done. Sheathing the evil, vanquishing sword, Yi Chun let the waves wash over his body. Unknowingly, a month had passed. The second heart-nourishing grass had been refined successfully. Compared to before, Yi Chen's heart strength was several times stronger. With his blood pumping faster, his heart was like a drum, letting out thumping sounds. This sound caused the surrounding earth to shake and dust to rise. Once, Yi Chen had dived into the sea. The sound of his heart beating had even killed a fourth-grade demonic beast. Ripples spread out in all directions, with Yi Chen as the center. It was hard to imagine the extent of Yi Chen's heartbeat. However, this was not the end. Yi Chen had officially refined the third heart-nourishing grass. Once he succeeded, he would attempt to break through to Half-Step King realm. This time, he could only succeed. Failure was not allowed. On the other side, a powerful demonic aura soared into the sky, dyeing the sky black. Black whirlwinds appeared out of nowhere and revolved around the island, fiercely blowing. Murong Qingqing's cultivation base had clearly increased by another level. She was getting closer and closer to a veteran Half-Step King. Apart from this, the soul membrane of Half-Step Kings would also increase along with the increase in cultivation base. For example, the yellow-robed woman was a strongest Half-Step King. Even if she suffered the soul sound waves of mysterious In King, she would only suffer some injuries and not lose consciousness. This was the effect of the soul membrane. On the other hand, Yi Chun possessed a fifth-step destruction sword soul and fourth-step immortal sword soul, as well as a soul power 5 times that of ordinary people. Even if he wasn't a Half-Step King, he could completely resist mysterious In King's soul sound waves. Compared to the yellow-robed woman, once he entered Half-Step King realm and formed his soul membrane, it would be difficult for even life and death kings to attack him with soul power. Unless it was some extremely frightening heaven-grade high-step soul attack secret art, or a heaven-grade peak soul attack secret art of annihilation. Another month passed by. Suddenly, a huge wave rose up in the sea. The huge wave took the shape of a ring and suddenly spread out. This was not the end. In the center of the ring-shaped wave, a huge water ball was suddenly born. It expanded to a size of several dozen meters before exploding violently. Water vapor filled the air. Dong, 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 dong. The intense vibrations could be heard even on the island, startling some seabirds and causing them to flutter their wings and flee in panic. 3-heart nourishing grass actually strengthened my heart to this extent. It seems like the success rate of breaking through to half-step king realm is at least 70%. Yi-chan emerged from the sea and stood on a reef. What Yi-chan didn't know was that the main reason his heart could be strengthened to this extent was related to his undying body. The human body had a limit, and too much medicinal energy would be wasted, and the body wouldn't be able to endure it all at once. If it were someone else, refining 3-heart nourishing grass might not be as effective as refining 1-heart nourishing grass for Yi-chan. This was because Yi-chan's undying body could maximize the potential of his body, allowing him to absorb medicinal energy like a bottomless pit. Moreover, if there was any injury, the undying body would also help repair it. As long as his heart didn't explode, there wouldn't be any problem. Therefore, although the undying body seemed insignificant in many aspects, nobody knew the truth. At the very least, Yi-chan wasn't clear about it. Chapter 799. Murong Qingsheng had already come out of seclusion. Her current demonic power cultivation base was much stronger than when she was in the ruins. With a slight circulation of demonic power, the sky around the island darkened and demonic wind whistled, as if they had entered a world of darkness. According to Yi-chen's estimation, Murong Qingsheng's current cultivation base was almost at mid-half-step king realm, while the yellow-robed woman was clearly at high step. This was the difference between having demonic power crystals and not. With Murong Qingsheng here, Yi-chan could relax and enter seclusion to break through. Inside the spacious cave, Yi-chan sat cross-legged on a stone platform with his 5 hearts facing upwards, rapidly entering a state of wholehearted cultivation. Gulp! Under the control of his consciousness, the Zhen Yuan in Yi-chen's dantian slowly and powerfully revolved. Strands of Zhen Yuan gushed out of his dantian and flowed into his blood vessels. Then, driven by his blood, he began to break through to half-step king realm. There were countless blood vessels in the human body. Apart from the cornea, hair, nails, teeth, and epithelium, blood vessels could be found all over the body. According to the different structures and functions of blood vessels, they were divided into arteries, veins, and capillaries. Breaking through to half-step king realm naturally didn't need to fuse all 3 types of blood vessels with Zhen Yuan. He only needed to make the Zhen Yuan perfectly circulate along with the blood in the arteries. As his blood began to flow faster, Yi-chen's heartbeat became higher and higher. Every beat was like a coconut, yet also like a tightly clenched fist, extremely powerful. Thumping sounds rang out incessantly, and the air in the cave also vibrated, spreading outwards. Good. This is several times smoother than the first time. Feeling the power of his heart, Yi-chan was even more confident. Under the control of his consciousness, his blood flow once again increased, reaching an unimaginable level. However, just in case, Yi-chan still swallowed a spirit melting grass, which could allow Zhen Yuan and blood to merge for a longer time. With enough spirit melting grass, he wouldn't even need heart protecting flower or heart nurturing grass to directly break through to half-step king realm. Unfortunately, spirit melting grass wasn't cabbage. Yi-chan had only found 2 of them in Four Corner City. Everything was ready. Yi-chan could feel that his breakthrough to half-step king realm was not far off. While Yi-chan was trying to break through to the half-king realm, the outside world was not calm either. It was unknown when a head the size of a castle had emerged from the raging sea. It was a giant whale. On the giant whale's head, there were 4 lake-sized eyes. 2 of the eyes were blue and flashed with electricity. The 2 eyes in the middle were scarlet, cruel, and bloodthirsty. It was a 4-eyed thunder whale at the half-step demonic king realm. It was the largest among the cetacean sea beasts. It was said that the largest 4-eyed thunder whale was comparable to a city, It could swallow half a city in one bite, killing countless lives. Its huge body meant that the beast power inside its body was boundless. The moment the four-eyed thunder whale appeared, everything within hundreds of miles became strangely still. The waves froze in the air, the wind stopped spinning, and everything was frozen. Puny human, hand over all your wealth. The four-eyed thunder whale let out a thunderous sound towards Murong Qingsheng. Murong Qingsheng stood on a tall rock. She reached out her hand and brushed away the hair that had been messed up by the wind before. She said lightly, "Cut the crap. You are perfect for the experiment." With her cultivation increasing, Murong Qingsheng was just about to find someone to test it out on. The four-eyed thunder whale was a huge sea beast, so it would be a good opponent. "You are looking for death." The four-eyed thunder whale was furious. It opened its huge mouth, and a thick water column with electricity shot out, attacking at Murong Qingsheng, who was relatively small in size. Murong Qingsheng did not dare to be careless, so she reached out her right hand and blocked in front of her body. Rumble! A semicircle black barrier appeared, protecting half of the island within. The 100-meter-thick water column crashed onto it, bringing up a huge splash. However, those arm-thick electric currents were unable to penetrate the barrier and harm Murong Qingsheng. Dark element profound sense martial art, darkness sky. Dying. The most powerful attack of sea beasts was not energy attacks, but physical attacks. The mountain-like four-eyed thunder whale jumped up. The sky was dark, and the whole island was covered in its shadow. Swoosh! Swoosh! The four-eyed thunder whale's body was surrounded by electricity as it smashed towards Murong Qingsheng. Dark Devour. Murong Qingsheng was afraid that the battle would affect Yi Chun, who was in the middle of breaking through. She quickly formed a hand seal with both of her hands. After that, she waved her right hand in the air. All of a sudden, 4 black light balls formed in a row, spinning and collapsing like 4 small black holes. As soon as the four-eyed thunder whale touched the black light balls, it immediately felt that half of the impact had disappeared. The beast power in its body flowed out like water, pouring into the black light balls. This black light ball could devour power and energy. Piss off! Her tall and slim body jumped into the air as Murong Qingsheng threw out a palm attack at the four-eyed thunder whale's forehead. That powerful demon power exploded, blowing the four-eyed thunder whale dozens of miles away. The shockwave that was brought up even tore apart the clouds in the sky. Such a rich beast power. The second her palm made contact with the four-eyed thunder whale, Murong Qingsheng could feel that its beast power had not decreased by much. Ever since she had become a half-step king warrior, her Dark Devour ability had increased by more than 10 times. Even a half-step king warrior would lose 1/10 of their power if they were hit by it. If they were hit consecutively, they would not even need to fight before their Zhenyuan would be completely devoured. However, the four-eyed thunder whale's beast power could be said to be endless. 4 Dark Devour attacks would only devour 1/100th of its beast power, which was almost negligible. Whale Dance. As a half-step beast king, the four-eyed thunder whale would not only have this kind of attack. Its body shone with a bright thunder light, and hundreds of giant whales were formed from the ocean water. These whales were not even 1/100th the size of the four-eyed thunder whale, but there were a lot of them. Their bodies were covered in thunder and lightning, making cracking sounds. Hundreds of huge whales rode the wind and broke through the waves, rushing toward Murong Qingsheng and attacking her. Murong Qingsheng's expression did not change at all. The purple and black electric currents on her body moved quickly, and an invisible power field spread out with her as the center. Within a second, hundreds of giant whales were affected. Under the effect of the power field, every step the whales took would have to bear 10 times the pressure. Before they even got close to the island, they had all been shattered and turned back into ocean water. What kind of power field is this? The 2 eyes in the center of the four-eyed thunder whale squinted into slits. A normal force field wouldn't be this powerful. His Whale Dance was one of his most powerful trump cards, but he couldn't even get close to her. This woman's power was beyond his imagination. I will come again. The four-eyed thunder whale sank back into the ocean, and its towering mountain-like body disappeared, lightly landing on a rock nearby. Murong Qingsheng frowned slightly. Ocean beasts are usually huge, and their beast power is extremely powerful. It is not easy to kill them, unless I can break through their defense with one attack and hit their vitals. That palm attack from before had already wounded the four-eyed thunder whale. But obviously, compared to its huge body, that injury was just a small one. It did not even have the right to cause the four-eyed thunder whale any pain. Ocean beasts were called moving fortresses for a reason. Guarding the island, Murong Qingsheng did not move, but her soul power would scan out from time to time. Inside the cave on the island, Yichun had already reached the critical moment. His blood was driving his Zhen Yuan, completing the perfect cycle. He was only one step away, and it would be the most difficult one. Taking out the second and last spirit melting plant, Yichun swallowed it without any hesitation. All of a sudden, a wave of cool and sticky medicinal power seeped into his blood vessels, making the blood and Zhen Yuan combine even better. There would not be any sign of separation in a short period of time. Success or failure depends on this. Yichun moved his mind, and his blood flow increased rapidly. His heart was reaching its limit, and a thumping sound could be heard continuously. Soon, Yichun's body was surrounded by a hot mist, and within the mist, there was a vague red light. It was the sign of the excessive water evaporation, bringing out the qi and blood. In his inner vision state, Yichun could see that inside his arteries, his blood and Zhen Yuan had almost formed a perfect cycle. There was only a small gap left, which would decide whether or not he would be able to reach the half-step king warrior level. Let's make a breakthrough. Taking a deep breath, Yichun pushed his blood flow to an overloaded state. All of a sudden, his heart was slightly damaged and a lot of his blood vessels were broken. Boom! Right then, a wave of powerful Zhen Yuan vibration spread out in all directions with the cave as the center. Dark clouds gathered in the sky all of a sudden, and heavy rain poured down. Lightning and thunder roared, and the intense Yuan Qi vibrated, causing a huge storm. It was nature's reaction to the change of the environment. Ting! All of a sudden, a massive sword Qi shot out into the sky, tearing apart the sky and earth. The breakthrough is successful. This sword Qi, Murong Qingsheng turned her head, a joyful expression on her face. Without a doubt, from this moment on, Yichun had officially entered the half-step king warrior level. However, this horrifying sword Qi was a bit different, completely different from the sword Qi that came from great swords. It had a unique characteristic. Murong Qingsheng looked like she was thinking about something. Before this, Yichun had trained the Green Lotus Sword spell, which was a top-rank Earth Realm martial art. Above that, there was actually a Heaven Realm martial art, which was not something that anyone could train successfully. Although it was related to the comprehensive ability, it was not directly related. Instead, it was directly related to Zhen Yuan and Realm. Normally, only Life and Death Realm warriors could create a Heaven Realm martial art that was suitable for them. Of course, it would take a long time, at least dozens of years, and at most hundreds of years. Under Life and Death Realm, even if one's comprehensive ability was extremely high, they would not be able to create a Heaven Realm martial art, because under Life and Death Realm, one Zhen Yuan would not be able to support the operation of a Heaven Realm martial art. However, there was an exception, and that was some top-rank Earth Realm martial arts that could be upgraded. For example, the Green Lotus Sword spell was one of them, which was originally a top-rank Earth Realm martial art. Once it was upgraded, it would naturally become a Heaven Realm martial art. With such a huge commotion, Murong Qingsheng could not think of any other possibilities. Chapter 800. Murong Qingsheng's guess was right. When Yichun broke through to the half-step king warrior level, he had indeed increased his Green Lotus Sword spell to the Heaven Realm. Actually, a long time ago, Yichun had already felt that his Green Lotus Sword spell had been restricted, as if there was an invisible barrier stopping him from making a breakthrough. Since Battle King's experience was different from Yichun's, he had created his own Heaven Realm martial art when he reached the Life and Death Realm. Therefore, his experience could not explain this, and Yichen did not think too much about it at that time. Now that he thought about it, it should be because of the special nature of his Green Lotus Sword spell. After all, when he first got his Green Lotus Sword spell, it was written that both the Green Lotus Sword spell and Green Lotus Sword arts could make breakthroughs. Later on, the Green Lotus Sword art had evolved into a Heaven Realm martial art, which was also a profound sense martial art, Amaranth in nature. Heaven Realm martial arts are profound sense martial arts. Although Heaven Realm martial arts do not have much to do with profound sense, they still contain an immeasurable power like the natural law. Battle King's Heaven Realm martial art was the Platinum Sword Body, which had a natural advantage in defense. Normal King warriors would not be able to hurt him at all. I wonder what kind of special effect my Green Lotus Sword spell has. Yichen's body was shining with a powerful blue chi flow. It was extremely sharp, and with just a little bit of combination, it could form an indestructible sword chi. That earth-shattering sword chi just now was a beam of sword chi formed by the blue chi flow. Scatter! Yichen groaned as he controlled the blue chi flow to scatter. Pop! As if a blue bubble had been formed, the blue chi flow spread out with Yichen as the center. Looking from afar, Yichen seemed to be inside a massive blue chi cover. Inside the chi cover, the blue chi flow was spinning without any pattern. Condense. Yichen could not be more familiar with the Green Lotus Sword spell. Therefore, even though his Green Lotus Sword spell had reached the Heaven Realm, Yichen still vaguely knew something about it. Ding! Ding! Countless sword sounds were heard as countless blue great swords appeared inside the blue chi cover. Is this the sword artist's domain? Sword domain. Yichen was surprised. No, it should be the embryonic form of a sword domain. A true sword domain would have its own unique laws, and these laws would be controlled by the person who released it. Big brother, that woman is on the island ahead. Thousands of miles away, 4 figures were galloping over. These 4 figures were a 4-eyed giant whale, a double-headed serpent, a flaming giant bird, and a hook-nosed man standing on the back of the giant bird. The man's bare arms were covered with fish scales, and he had a pair of gray wings on his back. The demonic energy fluctuations emanating from him seemed to contain the attributes of wind and water. The man nodded satisfyingly and said to the huge whale, "It's hard to see a human half-step king in the deep ocean, not to mention a beautiful woman. You've done well. Once I capture that woman, I'll give you a bit more of her wealth." "Thank you, big brother." The 4-eyed whale opened its pitch-black mouth. Sea beasts in the deep sea had always lacked spirit stones to cultivate, so human experts were one of their favorite prey. "We're here." Thousands of miles were only tens of blinks of an eye for sea beasts at half-step beast king level. Soon, the 4 beasts arrived at the island. "You're here again." Murong Qingsheng had already sensed their arrival. The 4-eyed whale laughed weirdly. "I said I would come back. I didn't expect you to be this arrogant, staying here and not leaving. With your power, why do you need to leave?" Purple-black electric currents moved around on the surface of her body. As Murong Qingsheng spoke, her dark power field spread out, covering dozens of miles. "Big brother, this woman is too arrogant. Let me teach her a lesson." The 2-headed serpent volunteered. The hook-nosed man glanced at Murong Qingsheng. In his memory, he had never seen a human woman who was even 60% as beautiful as her. All of a sudden, a perverted look flashed through his eyes as he held his chin and said to the serpent, "Don't hurt her. I know what I'm doing." The serpent was not much smaller than the 4-eyed whale, and in terms of length, it was even longer. It coiled its body and raised its 2 heads up high, looking down at Murong Qingsheng. Its long red tongues flicked in and out like 2 10-meter-long spears. "Surrender now, and you will not have to suffer any pain. My patience is limited." The 2-headed serpent was more powerful than the 4-eyed whale. It had learned from the 4-eyed whale that this woman wasn't necessarily stronger than the 4-eyed whale, but her force field ability was slightly more powerful, which rendered its trump card useless. The 2-headed serpent wasn't afraid of any force fields. Its ability was different from the 4-eyed whale's. "Kill." Murong Qingsheng didn't waste any more time with the serpent. She leaped into the air and threw dozens of hand blades at the serpent. Clang, 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 clang. Although the flying sky assassination cut was only a low-rank, profound sense martial art, it was fast. Because of its carelessness, the serpent was hit by dozens of black blade lights, its scales flying everywhere. Feeling the pain, the serpent screamed. Its left head shot out a high-pressure water column toward Murong Qingsheng, while its right head shot out a black venom toward Murong Qingsheng. The high-pressure water column only relied on the impact to hurt people, but the black venom was different. Once a demonic beast reached rank 9 or 10, its venom would no longer be pure venom, but a powerful venom mixed with Zhenyuan. Not to mention the venom from a half-step beast king. Once it touched the body, it would be very troublesome. Swoosh! The wings on her back spread out as Murong Qingsheng flashed once, avoiding the high-pressure water column and the black venom, appearing in the sky. Soul Extinguishing Wave. Holding a black light ball in her hand, Murong Qingsheng suddenly clenched her fist. Boom! The black light ball was shattered, and an energy wave mixed with a soul attack shot out toward the serpent. The serpent made a weird sound as its body flipped over, rolling around in the ocean. Although the soul attack contained in the soul extinguishing wave was not enough to kill it, it had shaken its soul quite a bit. Moreover, the soul of the sea beasts had always been weaker than that of humans. This was the horrifying thing about soul attacks. Sky Demon Finger. Murong Qingsheng seized the opportunity and performed another demon's martial art, Sky Demon Finger. The black finger power was like a small black sun, attacking toward the serpent. Boom! The black and red lights spread out in all directions. In that critical moment, the flaming bird shot out a red fireball, which landed on the black sun. On the back of the flaming bird, the man clapped his hands and laughed. Not bad. Not bad. Number 4 and number 2's beast power are thousands of times more powerful than yours, but they still lost to you. Your power might even be at the top of the human demi-king warriors. The sea beasts were one of the beasts. Because of their huge bodies, their beast power was unstoppable. Normally, 10 human demi-king warriors would need to fight against one demi-king level sea beast. But it was also because of their power that it was extremely hard for the sea beasts to produce demi-king warriors. The deep ocean was so huge, and the demi-king level sea beasts might not be that much more than the humans. Cut the bullshit. Let's go. Murong Qingsheng frowned slightly. The sea beasts were indeed scarier than the beasts on the land. The main reason was that they were too huge, and their beast power was horrifying. Although their power and body might not be the same, the difference was still hundreds of times. Murong, let me do it. The cave on the island exploded, and Yi Chun and Blue flew over, standing right next to Murong Qingsheng, looking at the 4 beasts in the distance. You are the one she is protecting, right? You have just reached demi-king warrior level. What can you do? The man observed Yi Chun carefully and realized that his Zhenyuan vibration was a lot weaker than Murong Qingsheng's, which meant that he had just reached demi-king warrior level. Sword domain. Yi Chun did not say anything. He squinted his eyes slightly, and a blue light suddenly spread out from his body, covering hundreds of miles in a second. What is this? The man was already in the range of the blue light. He reached out his hand and made a grabbing gesture in the air, feeling that the blue chi flow was a bit piercing. Yi Chun smiled lightly and pushed his right hand toward the 4. Shoo! 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 Without any sign, the blue chi flow condensed into countless blue great swords, each of which contained a rank 5 destruction sword intent. Perhaps their pure attacking power was not as powerful as Yi Chun's normal attacks, but with enough of them, it would still have a destructive power. Tens of thousands of blue great swords shot out, and the 4 beasts were all within the attack range. Be careful. The man did not dare to be careless, so he pushed up a layer of protective beast power. The other 3 beasts also activated their beast power to block out the incoming attacks. There were just too many blue great swords shooting out like a storm. This kind of effect was just like thousands of Sea of Souls realm warriors attacking at the same time. Without a doubt, they had suppressed the four beasts and then started to weaken their defense. Too scary. Back out. The aquiline-nosed man was aghast. His protective demonic energy couldn't block so many green swords. How is this a one-on-one fight? It was clearly a group fight. Tens of thousands of people ganging up on four people. They weren't sea beast kings, so they couldn't ignore this kind of attack. The first one to be attacked was the four-eyed giant whale. Its body was the widest, so it was attacked the most. Almost a third of the attacks were directed at it. Pooh! Pooh! Like a piece of rotten meat, the four-eyed giant whale was pierced by the blue great swords and turned into a pile of blood paste. The ocean water it was in had been cut into countless pieces, and it could not be healed right away. The next one to die was the double-headed snake, which was not much better than the whale. The flaming bird was rather fast. It carried the man and ran out of the sword realm. The red feathers on its body had almost all been cut off by the blue great swords. Luckily, it was at the edge of the sword realm and was able to run fast, so it was not killed right away. Do you think you can get away? Yichin took out his evil shattering sword and threw out a waning moon attack. That black crescent-shaped sword power made the full moon in the sky look even dimmer. It sliced through the flaming bird's body once. Swoosh! The flaming bird and the man were both dismembered within a second.